Chapter 2175. Inside the consciousness space, Shaoqin still could not come out of the strange cycle. The Buddhist sects Kasyapa Buddha and the Blue Dragon Bloodline's blood-soaked Dragon Emperor all abandoned the demonic path and returned to the righteous path. Just as Shaoqin felt at a loss, Gu Yuhan's group of 4 slowly approached the God-conferring platform on the heaven-bridging peak. It looked like they would need less than 10 seconds to charge up. Sovereign Emperor. Shaoqin closed his eyes and entered deep thought, thinking about which bridge to choose. It really is spiritual rain. Why is there spiritual rain on the God-conferring platform? Shaoqin had already seen the might of divine energy long ago. As they slowly approached, it looked like they were going to merge. However, just at this moment, something unexpected happened. The situation changed drastically. A sharp light soared into the clouds on the God-conferring platform, piercing through the sky. An aura suddenly burst out, shocking the surroundings, unprecedented in the past and present. What's going on? Shaoqin did not want to be an ancient demonic sovereign or a powerful divine sovereign. He only wanted to be himself. Shaoqin already saw the future of the divine bridge and the demonic bridge. If he chose either, the benefits of the 7 azure lamps would not diminish. Suddenly, Shaoqin felt horror in his heart. There seemed to be an unknown plot on this God-conferring platform. If Bai Yunfei and Chu Feng had not been careless and could not condense divine energy on this God-conferring platform, Shaoqin would not have defeated them so miserably. Shaoqin's position changed. 2 ancient, burning azure lamps blocked his way in all directions. However, Shaoqin had not woken up yet. The scarier thing was that Gu Yuhan's group of 4 had been condensing divine energy as they climbed. How condensed was the spiritual rain contained within the rainwater? However, such a choice did not remain in Shaoqin's memory. Perhaps it was erased. If one did not make a choice, one would not be able to reach the other side. No matter which direction one took, 2 bridges would appear, 1 divine bridge and 1 demonic bridge. The moment the 4 attacked, Mu Zifeng's expression changed. He knew that he was in trouble. With Shaoqin's experience, he could easily tell that anyone who blocked these 4 killing moves would die unless a sovereign emperor made a move. Gu Yuhan felt stupefied. Although Shaoqin was domineering earlier, everything was within Gu Yuhan's control and expectations. The disciples of the various factions were overjoyed. The spiritual rain falling from the sky was even purer than the origin liquid. There was no third option. It wasn't that they didn't want to cultivate together, but that they couldn't. Ling Yu. Perhaps it was not without reason that the sky-bridging peak was broken into 3 pieces by the Black Dragon King. The 2 bridges in front of him were formed by sensing the demonic energy and spiritual energy in his body. Seeing this scene, Gu Fei, whose heart had been hanging in suspense, began to laugh wildly, feeling incomparably pleased with himself. In the illusory space, Shaoqin opened his eyes and made his choice. Ha 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 ha. In the end, Gu Fei won this bet. Mu Zifeng, remember, you owe me a wish. I hope you can accept your defeat. A figure suddenly stood up. With a flip of his hand, the wind and clouds changed color. Instantly, the killing moves of the 4 experts crumbled and crumbled in the blink of an eye. Shaoqin could only rely on himself to resolve the problem before him. Back then, he could not find the answer to the blood-soaked Dragon Emperor's question. Furthermore, now that Shaoqin's cultivation had fallen from half-step sovereign emperor to late-stage sovereign personage, he would definitely die. In the past few years, Shaoqin had purposely given up on cultivating the demonic cloud heaven-swallowing art. Amid thunder and lightning, strong winds blew, and torrential rain poured endlessly. In just a few breaths, Shaoqin's cultivation plummeted like a flood, incredibly fast. Before the 4 could sigh, the remaining palm lights shattered their internal organs, leaving thousands of holes in their bodies. Then, they fell off the sky-bridging peak. However, when Shaoqin looked back, nothing changed. Only by making a choice could one see where the other shore was. If it were someone else, perhaps only 1 bridge would appear before them. Whoosh! 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 2 divine bridges appeared because of Xiaochen. Long ago, Xiaochen learned that one could not cultivate the righteous Tao and demonic Tao cultivation techniques at the same time in the martial epoch. As Xiaochen looked at the 2 ancient bridges in front, he sat down cross-legged and formed hand seals. Immediately, the spiritual energy and veritable essence energy in his body flowed out continuously. If he had to choose one path to obtain the benefits of the 7 azure lamps, then he would not mind giving up on it. Back in the real world, on the God-conferring platform on the heaven-bridging peak, after entering this God-conferring platform, Xiaochen did not say anything about turning his head back. He would not run into such a problem. Xiaochen searched the blood-soaked Dragon Emperor's memories. The blood-soaked Dragon Emperor did indeed cultivate a demonic Tao cultivation technique. Could there be only one bridge left before him? If the veritable essence energy in Xiaochen's body could reach the state of primal chaos, yin and yang, perfectly merging. Right, let's do that. However, why must I separate myself? Inside his consciousness space, Xiaochen scattered his spiritual energy and veritable essence energy as fast as he could. The 2 ancient bridges in front had already started flickering endlessly. On the heaven-bridging peak, many cultivators were drenched by the rain. When the rain seeped into their skin, they discovered that their cultivation had increased slightly. The 4 of them condensed divine essence along the way. At this moment, the moment they attacked, the terrifying aura instantly severed the thunder clouds, and the entire heavenspan peak started trembling. Boom! A single thought from a fiend god. This fall was even worse than Chu Feng's and Bai Yunfei's. Whether or not he could survive was up to fate. Xiaochen was overjoyed. As expected, it was like this. Good. Mu Zifeng snorted coldly and ignored Xiaochen. He only looked at Xiaochen, feeling confused. He still could not understand. Gu Yuhan said coldly, determination flashing in his eyes. Although he said that he was turning back, he was actually running away. How could running away solve the problem? The figure who stood up gently waved his hand. When his palm was facing the sky and his back was facing the sky, he pushed out his palm. Facing the howling wind and torrential rain, the few of them took large strides. Just as they were about to step onto the conferred God stage, they leaped up and attacked simultaneously. Divine energy that was purer and denser than Gu Yuhan's and the others surged out. As the Buddhists say, repent and you will be saved. Oh no! Now, the 4, who were only a few steps away from the conferred God stage, did not dare to move rashly. Gu Yuhan's expression changed slightly. As he looked at the spiritual rain in his hand, he showed a strange expression in deep thought. What is this Xiaochen up to? Shock flashed in Xiaochen's eyes as he turned around. There were actually 2 bridges behind him as well, one divine bridge and one demonic bridge. That is possible. Perhaps he sensed that the 4 below are coming and knows that he will die for sure. So, he might as well take a gamble. Even if he did not want to, he had to choose. What cultivation did these people have? They were heaven-defying sovereign personages at the very least. When the spiritual rain entered their bodies, it actually increased their cultivation. With this thought, Xiaochen's eyes lit up. His thoughts immediately cleared up. Xiaochen did not get overly anxious. He continued to think calmly, thinking of a way to resolve this. Be it the ancient demonic sovereign under the blood moon on the other side of the demonic bridge or the powerful deity sovereign under the bright moon on the other side of the divine bridge, they were all himself. Mu Yunzhu glanced at the conferred God stage a few steps away. Then, he said, Senior brother, this fellow's cultivation has fallen to late-stage sovereign personage. What move are you making? To think that I cannot understand it. Mu Yunzhu and the other 2 gaped at each other, unable to figure it out, as well. Even if Xiaochen had been at his peak, he would not have had any chance of victory against these 4 killing moves, which were formed entirely from divine energy. At best, he would have been hanging on by a thread. Strange. Even if Xiaochen found Xiaochen's memories of this problem, it would not be of much help. Quickly absorb it. Ha ha ha. This is even purer than origin liquid. It really is the immortal spiritual rain. Suddenly, a large amount of veritable essence energy flowed out of Xiao Chen's body, looking pure and dense. Wind blew, thunder roared, clouds moved, and rain fell. Soon, the spiritual energy that Xiao Chen gave off turned into a heavy downpour. Accompanied by lightning and thunder, it poured down with a crashing sound. Be it in the future or in the past, I will only choose to be myself. No one can determine my future. As long as Xiao Chen's spiritual energy, veritable essence energy, and demonic qi, veritable essence energy, reach a balance, he will be able to merge his veritable essence energy into one. We can't wait any longer. No matter what tricks he plays, we just need to suppress him with strength. This is origin energy. It looked like this made sense. They might have faced a similar situation before. With a thought, a god demon could either become a god or a demon. Outside the trial tower, the group of faux gods, including Mu Zifeng, could not understand either. Let's do it, then. Now that Xiao Chen made up his mind, he no longer hesitated, turning to leave. There were many god monarchs and demonic lords in the world. However, there was only one Xiao Chen. However, the price is too high. Even jumping off the god-conferred platform would be better than this. Furthermore, look. He still has not opened his eyes. This means that he is still refining the Paramitha energy of the azure lamp. After living for so long, I can't even understand the actions of a junior. It was not that some people had not cultivated the Paramitha energy. However, in the end, they were forced to give up on one of them. Whoosh! Cultivation is not easy to come by. Who knows how many resources he exhausted and how much time he had to spend to reach his current cultivation. Why did he scatter it just like that? Gu Fei, who was laughing maniacally outside the trial tower, was stupefied. Before he finished speaking, Xiao Chen actually became a sovereign emperor, instantly turning the situation around. Is it possible that he is brewing some kind of secret technique? I know that some secret techniques will cause one's cultivation to drop when executed. The primal chaos veritable essence energy in Xiao Chen's body could no longer reach its initial state of balancing yin and yang, merging them into one. Now that Xiao Chen suddenly released his origin energy, he could not understand. Xiao Chen executed a horrifying killing move at the same time, instantly drowning out Xiao Chen. Gu Fei smiled and said, I think you are overthinking. Perhaps you are just stupid. The Paramitha energy is not that easy to refine. If you are not careful, you might end up damaging your brain. Don't you think so, Mu Zifeng? Who would scatter the veritable essence energy that they had cultivated so painstakingly? How many years would it take to condense it? Chapter 2176. Sovereign Emperor. Divine Vein Realm Sovereign Emperor. On the god-conferring platform, Xiao Chen's aura and the surging divine energy in his palm proved that Xiao Chen was already a bona fide divine vein realm sovereign emperor. First, Xiao Chen's cultivation dropped significantly, falling from half-step sovereign emperor to late-stage sovereign personage. Then, he jumped 2 grades, directly advancing to sovereign emperor. Many people felt stupefied. Xiao Chen's advancement felt like a dream. Even false emperors could not advance to sovereign emperor in a short time. How could the bottleneck between sovereign personage and sovereign emperor be so easy to break? The Cloud Sea realm had 3 major stages: Star Venerate, Holy Venerate, and Sovereign Personage. After passing Sovereign Personage, one would break through the limits of humans and start cultivating the divine. The bottleneck between Sovereign Personage and Sovereign Emperor was from human to divine. Even the peak geniuses of the faux god world needed 1 year to comprehend before they could break through. For example, the Dragon God Crown Prince Qin Ming, Grim Reaper Lin Feng, the Profound Heaven Holy Sun, Chu Chaoyun, and the others, who had already left the faux god world, had to cultivate for 1 or 2 years before they broke through their bottlenecks. However, someone like Xiao Chen, who instantly broke through the bottleneck of a sovereign emperor, was one of a kind. 1 moment ago, Xiao Chen was still a late-stage sovereign personage. In the next, he became a divine Vane Realm's sovereign emperor, defeating Gu Yuhan and the others with a wave of his hand. Then, he soared into the sky from the god-conferring platform. He, actually became a sovereign emperor. Zhang Yushan's voice trembled as he spoke in a daze. Zhang Yushan was not the only one. All the disciples of the various factions on the heaven-bridging peak were shocked. Everyone had only one goal in the faux god world, to become a sovereign emperor as soon as possible and return to the Great Thousand Realms to show off their might. However, for most people, becoming a sovereign emperor in 10 years was an extravagant hope. Even though the faux god world's environment and fortuitous encounters were much better than the outside worlds, it was still somewhat difficult to become a sovereign emperor in 10 years. Those who could become sovereign emperors within 10 years would be heavily nurtured by their sects and factions. They would hold high positions, and their futures would be limitless. In the past, the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor had told Xiaoqin this. No matter how talented one was, if one could not become a sovereign emperor, everything would be meaningless. At the trial tower, Mu Zifeng looked at Gu Fei and said, "Brother Gu, it looks like I won this bet in the end." Gu Fei's expression was gloomy as he shouted, "I can still afford to lose, don't worry." Then, he left in a hurry. He looked anxious as he flew towards Real God Hall. Everyone knew that Xiaoqin wanted to see the Holy Lord and do his best to protect Gu Yuhan and Mu Yunzhu's lives. These two were outstanding talents. Their strength was clear for all to see. The profound Heaven Holy Land had spent a lot of resources on these two. Dying like this would be a huge loss. The many faux gods sighed softly. No one had expected things to end like this. In the end, the Heavenly Alliance's Xiaoqin monopolized the greatest benefit of the god-conferring platform. There were many obstacles along the way. Gu Yuhan, Chu Feng, and the others did their best to monopolize it. In the end, all their efforts ended in vain. Back then, if Chu Feng and Bai Yunfei had agreed to Xiaoqin to form their own azure lamps and absorb the Permetha energy, the result might have been different. However, there were no ifs in this world. Xiaoqin absorbed 7 azure lamps, breaking the shackles of godhood and becoming a divine Vane Realm's sovereign emperor. Did Xiaoqin really absorb only 7 azure lamps? Only Xiaoqin knew the answer. He did not absorb 7 azure lamps but a total of 14. When the divine demon bridges merged into one, the Permetha lamps did not merge. There were 7 on each side, for a total of 14. The instant Xiaoqin refined the energy of the 14 Permetha lamps, he felt his cultivation soar. This was the first time in his life that he experienced the carefree feeling of soaring into the sky, advancing rapidly. It was truly a carefree feeling. Sovereign Emperor. Xiaoqin tightly clenched his right fist. His eyes sparkled with a sharp light as confidence welled up in him. Xiaoqin had waited for this moment for a very long time, for many years. He had not wasted his 7 years in the faux god world. Many outstanding talents ended up as sovereign personages. Since they could not become sovereign emperors, they could only waste their lives and die in sorrow. Xiaoqin finally cleared the hurdle of becoming a sovereign emperor. After glancing at the foot of the mountain, Xiaoqin shouted, "Where are the Heavenly Alliance disciples? Xiaoqin will open the way for you. Aside from my Heavenly Alliance disciples, no one else is allowed to enter the god-conferring platform." What? Damn it! What is this Xiaoqin trying to do? Why can't we go up? Because he is a sovereign emperor. If you are not convinced, just look at what happened to Gu Yuhan and the others. Ha ha ha. Xiaoqin is a sovereign emperor. Let's go. Let's see who dares to stop us now. Immediately, some people rejoiced while others grieved. Naturally, the Heavenly Alliance disciples rejoiced. Along the way in paradise, the Heavenly Alliance disciples had been bullied and humiliated. The heaven-bridging peak had also been ostracized by the other factions. The Heavenly Alliance disciples had always been at the bottom of the heaven-bridging peak. Mu Zifeng, this disciple of yours is really arrogant. Once he gained the upper hand, he immediately became arrogant. Humph. Why doesn't he think about how pitiful he was before he came? He was even wrapped in a bedsheet to deceive others. How shameless. I thought that he was some big shot. He is only a so-so. When the other faux god powerhouses saw this scene, their expressions naturally turned unsightly. What did this mean? Shaochen directly chased their disciples off the god-conferring platform. All of them felt enraged. Mu Zifeng smiled and said, "Everyone is right. This Shaochen is really undisciplined when doing things. He is simply shameless. I'll teach him a lesson later." However, Mu Zifeng felt incredibly pleased in his heart as he laughed loudly. Indeed, this Shaochen did not make a mistake. This was what Shaochen needed to do. Even when he stood in a high position, he did not forget his status. What a bunch of fellows. Previously, when the Heavenly Alliance disciples were ostracized, he did not say a word. Serves you right for having such a day. Naturally, Shaochen had to thank the Heavenly Alliance for his accomplishments today. He was doing this to return the favor. Hence, he did not find anything wrong with it. After looking down the mountain, Shaochen entered deep thought. Then, he went to a corner of the god-conferring platform. Then, he suddenly attacked, using his own strength to block all the divine might there. Boom! Immediately, Shaochen forcefully opened up a fast passage on the heaven-bridging peak, which was filled with divine might. Naturally, only the Heavenly Alliance disciples could use this passage. Soon, the stronger Heavenly Alliance disciples, Wu Meng, Gongzi Lan, and Mou, climbed up the god-conferring platform one after another. They showed somewhat complicated expressions, feeling very grateful. Congratulations, Shaochen. You are too polite. When the Heavenly Alliance's people arrived at the summit through the fast passage, Shaochen smiled faintly and stopped. I'll leave the rest to the three of you to maintain order. I'm going down the mountain. Wu Meng nodded. There were many Heavenly Alliance disciples, so there had to be an order. The three also understood the rules, so they easily took on this task. Whoosh! Shaochen gently leaped up and directly jumped down from the summit. As Gongzi Lan looked at Shaochen's back, he sighed, back then, he was defeated by me. In the blink of an eye, he already left me far behind. Mou said after some thought, Shaochen has a sense of toughness, sharpness, and pride. However, he is low-key and dependable, matching the air of the faux god world. It is simply tailor-made for him. It is not strange for him to surpass us. The three withdrew their gazes and looked at the god-conferring platform. Wu Meng said after some thought, the three of us should be able to condense an azure lamp each. Being able to obtain such a harvest is already an opportunity. Right. If not for Shaochen, not to mention one permethal lamp, we might not even be able to reach the god-conferring platform. The three sighed in their hearts. Compared to the other super factions, even with the alloy battle armor, the Heavenly Alliance disciples were still slightly weaker. Indeed, they had to thank Shaochen for their current opportunity. However, there was a reason why Shaochen was in such a rush to leave. In the burial ground, Yuanzhen chanted scriptures, purifying the dead. A Buddhist light shone on his body as he walked among the corpses. He looked like a Buddha in the world, inspiring awe and veneration. I found it. Yuanzhen suddenly rejoiced. Then, he saw a pile of corpses turn into fireflies and scatter after being purified, revealing a dust-covered, ancient key. However, just as Yuanzhen was about to collect it, a strong aura descended from the sky. The Buddhist light that Yuanzhen originally gave off was forcibly suppressed into his body. The strong aura forced Yuanzhen to take a few steps back before he could stand stably. The ethereal immortal palace key. Monk Yuanzhen, why are you looking for this? Shaochen, who descended from the sky, grabbed the key. Then, he raised his eyebrows as he looked at Yuanzhen. Chapter 2177. An ethereal immortal palace key. Shaochen also had one, which the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor gave him. According to rumor, there were a total of 7 ethereal immortal palace keys. If one gathered all of them, one could open the ethereal immortal palace and take out the transcendent grade's soul tool, the Wings of Time. This Wings of Time had a great origin. It was the only transcendent grade soul tool in the world. Back then, the blood-soaked Dragon Emperor relied on this Wings of Time to defeat the unparalleled Black Dragon King. However, the world did not have much interest in the ethereal immortal palace, as the 7 ethereal immortal palace keys were scattered throughout the great thousand realms. The most important one, the inheritance key, had been lost for a long time, its whereabouts unknown. More importantly, no one knew where the ethereal immortal palace was. Even if one found the key, it would be useless. Hence, Xiaochen felt very curious. Why did Yuanjun give up on the opportunity on the God-conferring platform? Why did Yuanjun come to this burial ground to search for the ethereal immortal palace key? The instant Yuanjun saw Xiaochen appear, he showed an extremely stunned expression. The combination of his bald head and his shocked face looked very interesting. After stabilizing his emotions, Yuanjun smiled and said, "I was wondering who it was. It turns out that benefactor Xiao was joking with this monk. Congratulations. Being able to obtain the opportunity of 7 azure lamps is unprecedented in paradise. After you become a sovereign emperor and leave this faux god world, your name will shake the world. Why are you looking for the ethereal immortal palace key?" When Yuanjun saw that Xiaochen did not budge, he continued to pursue the matter. After some thought, he said, "Everyone has their own secrets. Although this monk is a monk, I am no exception. Benefactor Xiao, please stop asking." Xiaochen entered deep thought. Then, he nodded and said, "That's fine. I won't make things difficult for you, then." As Xiaochen spoke, he tried to put the ethereal immortal palace key into his storage ring. Yuanjun immediately panicked. He stepped forward and stretched out his hand to stop Xiaochen. "Benefactor Xiao, this monk found this after much difficulty. Don't do this." Xiaochen toyed with the ethereal immortal palace key for a while. Then, he smiled and said, "It belongs to whoever looks for it first. You are a monk. There is no need to be so unreasonable. Since it's in my hands, it naturally belongs to me. What's wrong with putting it into my own storage ring?" Yuanjun frowned heavily. Then, he said sullenly, "Benefactor Xiao, we have some friendship, right? Let's not talk about the matter of the ice-fire wasteland. Let's talk about today. If this monk didn't withdraw today, I'm afraid you wouldn't have obtained such a great fortune, right?" When Xiaochen heard this, he immediately found it funny. This monk had almost cheated him of his ice-fire lotus platform in the ice-fire wasteland, yet he still had the nerve to mention it. "As for today, if you don't fight for it, what has it got to do with me?" Xiaochen said softly, "Let's not talk about this. Tell me, why are you looking for the ethereal immortal palace key? If you tell me, I can give it to you." Yuanjun revealed a troubled expression. He said, "I cannot tell Benefactor Xiao about this now." Xiaochen didn't make things difficult for him and said, "Then I'll keep it for you for now. When you can tell the truth, I'll give it to you." Ignoring Yuanjun, Xiaochen leaped into the air. His figure gradually grew weaker and eventually vanished from paradise. Whoosh! Xiaochen's figure flashed, and he appeared outside the trial tower. He immediately noticed many gazes on him. The faux god powerhouses of the 5 super factions looked at Xiaochen with somewhat unsightly expressions. "Xiaochen, come over here." Mu Zifeng smiled faintly and waved at Xiaochen. "Greetings, Lord Mu." Xiaochen landed and performed a cupped fist salute. Mu Zifeng carefully sized up Xiaochen. Then, he nodded and said with a smile, "Not bad. Your performance this time is pretty good. Among the rewards, I'll think about what to give you after we leave the faux god world." After advancing to Sovereign Emperor, Xiaochen had to leave the faux god world. This trip to the faux god world came to a perfect conclusion. Xiaochen would appear in the Great Thousand Realms as a member of the Heavenly Alliance for a long time. "Thank you, Lord Mu. How much longer can I remain in the faux god world?" 3 days. Shao Chen thought to himself. With only 3 days remaining, he felt somewhat reluctant to leave now. The environment of the faux god world was similar to the Great Desolate Aeon, very suitable for cultivators to cultivate. In the blink of an eye, Shao Chen had stayed here for 7 years. However, it felt like less than 1 year had passed in the outside world. This felt rather wondrous. Mu Zifeng said, "There are still 3 days. You should deal with your matters first. I'll take you away after 3 days." "All right. I'll take my leave first, then." "Wait up." Just at this moment, a voice containing great might rang out. The one who spoke was a Bushan Palace old man. This old man wore hemp robes and looked like an immortal. He showed a dignified expression without showing any anger. He gave off a blazing aura, looking like an inextinguishable sun. No one dared to look at him directly. Senior Jean. When Mu Zifeng saw the old man, his heart sank. He did not dare to be slow. However, Shao Chen did not understand what was going on. This Senior Jean should be a Bushan Palace expert with the Golden Crow bloodline. However, he did not know why Senior Jean stopped him. It seemed like this person did not come with good intentions. The faux god powerhouses of the other factions showed suspicious expressions, guessing what was going on. This should be snatching Shao Chen away. Senior Jean looked at Shao Chen and said, "Shao Chen, someone previously told this old man that you once had a grudge with Ancestor Dragon City." Mu Zifeng felt nervous when he heard that. This was blatantly snatching Shao Chen away. However, Shao Chen's dragon race bloodline was real, so he could not say anything about it. Mu Zifeng's thoughts raced as he said softly, "Senior Jean, Shao Chen did indeed have a grudge with Ancestor Dragon City, which is why he left the Divine Dragon Empire. Right now, he is a free person in the Heavenly Alliance, able to come and go as he pleases. My Heavenly Alliance does not interfere with the internal conflicts of the other factions. Senior, rest assured." Senior Jean smiled and said, "Little Feng, you are treating Shao Chen like an outsider by saying that. No matter what, Shao Chen is a Divine Dragon Empire person. He just suffered some grievances. I have a pretty good relationship with Ancestor Dragon City's old fogies. Shao Chen, if you have any grievances, tell me. I can still help." Shao Chen sighed in his heart. The third palace master was right. If one did not become a sovereign emperor, one was nothing. Back then, if Shao Chen had been a sovereign emperor, there would not have been any problems with that matter in the Divine Dragon Empire. Now that Shao Chen had become a sovereign emperor, the powerhouses of Bushan Palace would be willing to step forward and resolve the matter. Reality was really interesting. However, the grudge between Shao Chen and the Purple Gold Dragon Emperor was not as simple as Senior Jean thought. Shao Chen believed that the Purple Gold Dragon Emperor would give Senior Jean face. However, the dragon race also had its own faction in Bushan Palace. If Shao Chen did not become a dragon emperor, he would just be asking for trouble by remaining in Bushan Palace. Shao Chen said straightforwardly, "Thank you for Senior's kind intentions. It is just a small matter. This junior will deal with it himself." Shao Chen could tell that Senior Jean held a high position among the faux god powerhouses. Shao Chen's words had humiliated this senior powerhouse. It would not be easy to face him in the future. In that case, take it as me saying too much. Senior Jean remained expressionless as he quietly withdrew, not saying anything more. Senior Jean was a senior, a powerhouse of Bushan Palace, much more important than Shao Chen. Clearly, it was impossible for Senior Jean to persuade Shao Chen. However, Mu Zifeng heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Shao Chen, you can withdraw first." Faux gods surrounded Shao Chen, making him feel uncomfortable. Fearing that someone would call him again, he quickly left. Just after Shao Chen left, the profound Heaven Holy Land's Gu Fei returned from the True God Palace. As he watched Shao Chen leave, a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Damn it! If I were still here earlier, I would have smacked that fellow to death. When Gu Fei met the Holy Lord earlier, Mu Yunzhu and Gu Yuhan were severely injured. Although they managed to survive, it was hard to say whether they could become sovereign emperors in the future. Gu Fei felt stifled in his heart, feeling very uncomfortable. Paradise's trial was more or less over. Xiao Qin had obtained the greatest benefits. 1 thunder cliff tree and 7 permetha lamps. The remaining benefits on the god-conferring platform had to be shared with a group of people. There was nothing more to see. The faux god powerhouses of the 5 super factions shook their heads and sighed as they left one after another. Back in the burial ground, Yuanzhen played with the skulls of the dead, feeling very depressed. Screw you. Yuanzhen flew into a rage and tossed the skulls in his hand. He did not look like a monk but more like a hooligan, appearing very ruffian. He had found the ethereal immortal palace key after much difficulty, but Xiao Qin snatched it away. This truly angered Yuanzhen. Furthermore, this fellow had become a sovereign emperor. Even if Yuanzhen wanted to make a move, he could not. After venting his frustration, Yuanzhen stood up and looked at the vast sea of corpses. Then, he said softly, I really cannot remain in this rundown place. I have to become a sovereign emperor as well. Ha! Yuanzhen sighed. He felt helpless when he met Xiao Qin. Chapter 2178. After leaving the trial tower, Xiao Qin immediately headed for Fiend Cloud Hall. Lu Benwei showed a faint smile. He had been waiting for a long time already. When he saw Xiao Qin arrive, he performed a cupped fist salute and said, How do you feel about soaring up and becoming a sovereign emperor? Xiao Qin thought for a while before replying seriously, At first, I was very excited. When I looked at the entire paradise, I could clearly feel how insignificant the others were. However, after I left paradise and saw a group of faux god powerhouses, I no longer felt anything. Ha 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 ha. Lu Benwei could not help guffawing when he heard that. Xiao Chen's answer was rather interesting. However, when he thought about it, he found that to be true. This was the faux god world. The faux gods that one could not meet in the Great Thousand Realms were all gathered here. No matter what kind of accomplishments one had, one would not be able to feel proud. Xiao Qin spoke honestly. The instant he advanced to Sovereign Emperor on the god-conferring platform, he had felt hot-bloodedness surge in his body. It was like he had gained a new life. Gu Yuhan and the other 3, who were originally strong opponents, were not worth mentioning in his eyes. Only when one truly became a sovereign emperor would one understand the difference between a false emperor and a true sovereign emperor. After leaving paradise, the group of faux gods looked around. This was especially so for Senior Jean, who held a high seniority. Hence, they did not have any other thoughts. Now that Xiao Qin arrived at Fiend Cloud Hall, his mental state had completely calmed down. Xiao Qin thought about how many obstacles he had faced on his path to becoming a martial emperor in the Kunlun realm. He had experienced too much and could already remain calm when facing anything. I'm here to say goodbye, first senior brother. Xiao Qin looked at Lu Benwei. After thinking for a while, he said, First senior brother. Lu Benwei appeared slightly stunned. Then, he asked softly, What did you call me? First senior brother. Although I did not become Senior Fiendish Saber's disciple, we have been together for 5 years. Although we are not master and disciple in name, our relationship has already surpassed that of ordinary master and disciple. Whether Senior Fiendish Saber recognizes me as his disciple or not, he is my master in my heart. In 3 days, he would be leaving the faux god world. There were some things that he would not have the chance to say if he did not say them now. Lu Benwei was quite pleased in his heart. He patted Xiao Chen's shoulder and said, It's good that you have the heart. I have always treated you as my junior brother. Come, follow me to see Master. He should see you. Yes. It was as Lu Benwei said. This time, Fiendish Saber Shimu did not avoid Xiao Chen. Thump. When Xiao Chen saw Shimu seated above, he immediately knelt without saying anything. This junior Xiao Chen will be leaving this faux god world soon. I will never forget Senior Fiendish Saber's various favors. Not to mention how much guidance he had given to Xiao Chen in the past 5 years. Just the life-saving grace a few days ago was enough for Xiao Chen to kneel. Towards this eccentric senior, Xiao Chen's heart had always been filled with awe and respect. This was especially so after Xiao Chen learned that Shimu came from a noble clan of swordsmen but chose the saber Dao. Shimu's expression was clearly stunned for a moment. However, he quickly recovered and said coldly, "I'm not your master or your parents. What is there to kneel for?" Whoosh! Right after Shimu spoke, he lifted Xiao Chen up with a palm strike, not letting him continue kneeling. Lu Benwei smiled and said, "Master, I have worked hard for you. In this trial of true God paradise, I managed to do my best." Xiao Chen was in the limelight this time, occupying 7 lamps on the God-conferring platform. This was unprecedented. Many faux gods were stunned. "This time, I am here to say goodbye to you." Shimu retorted with a serious expression, "What work? If I go out wrapped in a bedsheet, who knows how many people will laugh at me. I'm leaving." Shimu spoke halfway when he suddenly thought of something. He revealed a melancholic expression and turned to leave. Before he left, he said, "Stay in Fiend Cloud Hall for the next 3 days. Don't go anywhere else." Xiao Chen found this somewhat strange. He still had some friends in the faux god world. It did not seem appropriate for him to stay in Fiend Cloud Hall for the last 3 days. Xiao Chen could not help glancing at Lu Benwei, hoping that the other party would say something. Who knew? Lu Benwei smiled and said, "Xiao Chen, just stay here. If you want to meet anyone, I'll bring them over." Since Lu Benwei already said that, Xiao Chen could not rebut, so he nodded slightly. The two chatted for a while. Then, Lu Benwei imparted many of his Sovereign Emperor cultivation experiences to Xiao Chen. Sovereign Emperor was just a title, not a realm. The true realm was the Divine Vein Realm. However, everyone had always referred to it as Divine Vein Realm's Sovereign Emperor. Now, the two meant the same thing. After transcending mortality, there were 3 major realms: Veritable Personage, Primal Core, and Cloud Sea. Each realm had 3 stages. At the Cloud Sea realm, there were Star Venerate, Holy Venerate, and Sovereign Personage. However, be it Star Venerate, Holy Venerate, or Sovereign Personage, they were all in the Cloud Sea realm. Above the Cloud Sea realm was the Divine Vein realm. Above the Divine Vein realm was the Supreme Faux God realm. After crossing the Cloud Sea realm, one would be considered to have broken through the limits of cultivation. When one reached the Divine Vein realm, one would start cultivating the soul. The physical body was ordinary. There were 12 meridians, 12 tendons, and so on, forming the major cycle and minor cycle. The meridians ran through the entire body. Veritable essence energy and spiritual energy flowed through the meridians, forming the foundation of cultivation. However, after crossing the Cloud Sea realm and transcending mortality and entering Sage realm, the physical body would undergo a rebirth. It would become an extraordinary body, the Golden Emperor body. When cultivating now, one had to open divine veins. When one opened all 9 divine veins, one would reach great perfection in the Golden Emperor body. One would have an undying body. This undying body could be reborn from just a drop of blood. Even if one's physical body was destroyed, one could reform it with just a drop of blood. Such an opportunity was already beyond the imagination of ordinary people. That was why sovereign emperors were so horrifying. After reaching the Divine Vein realm, we can no longer be called humans? Lu Benwei asked seriously to Xiao Chen. However, we are not gods. Divine Vein realm sovereign emperors are existences that exist between gods and humans. At first, Xiao Chen felt that these words sounded strange. How could anyone say that they were not human? However, after thinking about it carefully, how could anyone be reborn from just a drop of blood? How could one survive even after their head and heart were chopped off? There is a total of 9 stages in the Sovereign Emperor realm. One divine vein is one stage. With every additional divine vein, the divine energy one can condense and the comprehension of the Tao will deepen significantly. If one gathers all 9 divine veins, one can be called a demigod. Such a person can be called a god just short of igniting the divine flame. In reality, one could only be called a faux god. However, in this martial epoch, faux god was already the peak. It would not be wrong to call one a god. Lu Benwei continued, after reaching the sovereign emperor realm, one has to forget all the cultivation techniques one cultivated in the past. Divine energy is not something that one can easily drive and refine using one's cultivation techniques. Divine vein realm cultivation techniques are extremely rare. However, now that you are in the Heavenly Alliance, you will not lack them. Shao Qian listened quietly, not interrupting. Occasionally, he would make note of his doubts in his heart. After Lu Benwei finished, Shao Qian voiced the questions in his heart, and Lu Benwei answered them one by one. This conversation lasted for a long time before Shao Qian returned to his residence in Fiend Cloud Palace. The Purple Thunder divine incantation can no longer help me cultivate. However, I have the 10,000 Dragons art, so I do not need to seek help from the Heavenly Alliance. The 10,000 Dragons art was a cultivation technique of the dragon race that had been passed down since the Great Desolate Aeon. After many epochs, it had been continuously improved. Starting today, I will formally cultivate the 10,000 Dragons art. I have to quickly condense a divine vein. Although Shao Qian was already a sovereign emperor, he had not opened a divine vein yet. According to Lu Benwei, he was only an early-stage sovereign emperor. Shao Qian had already converted all his veritable essence energy into divine energy. He was no longer like a false emperor, who needed to condense divine energy before he could use it. Sitting down cross-legged, Shao Qian closed his eyes and sensed his body. The 9-star primal core in his dantian had already shattered, turning into a golden sea. There seemed to be a heart beating strongly under the sea. A vast life force poured into Shao Qian's body. Divine energy sea. The golden divine energy turned into a vast sea. When his consciousness entered, Shao Qian stood in it. As Shao Qian walked on the sea, ripples appeared. Immediately, dignified Buddhist chants and ethereal immortal music appeared. All sorts of mysterious phenomena appeared with the ripples. However, Shao Qian entered deep thought. When he looked up, he saw a vast sea above him. However, that sea was pitch black like ink. The black sea was filled with a tyrannical will to consume. With a thought, the world turned upside down. The place where Shao Qian's consciousness stood turned into a pitch-black divine energy sea. When he looked up, he saw a golden divine energy sea. At the God-conferring platform, Shao Qian had chosen the primal chaos divine bridge. Now that he was a sovereign emperor, he actually had 2 divine energy seas. This resolved Shao Qian's worries. In the future, even if he cultivated a demonic Tao cultivation technique, as long as he did not want to, no one would be able to see his black divine energy sea. The 2 divine energy seas were one and also not one. Shao Qian could not understand the mysteries behind them. Immortal and Buddha dual cultivation, divine and demonic as one. Shao Qian did not know what the future would be like. After all, this was a path that no one had taken before. Chapter 2179. Master. Time passed slowly. At some point in time, a soft, cold snort came from the vast Fiend Mountain. Since you are not willing to say more, I will not ask. In any case, you only need to remember that you are now a formal member of the Heavenly Alliance. Although our Heavenly Alliance is not as strong as the other factions, we will not fear trouble. Many people in the faux god world were paying attention to him. Even if he knew who it was, it would be useless. Back at Shao Qian's residence, he showed a grave expression as he rushed back. His heart pounded heavily, unable to suppress his excitement. Shao Qian smiled faintly and did not forgive him, returning the bow. The interesting thing was that Lu Benwei called Zhang Yushan and the other 2 over to send off Shao Qian. Lu Benwei did not mind. He smiled faintly and said, "You are too polite. Take care." With Lord Mu taking care of you, there should not be any problems along the way. 4 hours later, the image of a dragon formed by divine energy burst out of the sea. It roared proudly in all directions, and a dragon roar rang out. However, fiendish saber Shimu did not give Xiao Chen a chance to explain. He shouted coldly and sheathed his saber. The waves scattered, and space returned to normal. That dragon image left in a fluster, feeling like it had been granted amnesty. Scram! Xiao Chen calmed his emotions and continued to circulate the 10,000 dragons art unhurriedly. The two chatted for a while. Then, Lu Benwei arrived late to send off Xiao Chen. Zhang Yushan felt incredibly frustrated. These two junior brothers are as stupid as dogs, touching my sore spot. Xiao Chen did not deny it. He performed a cup-fist salute and said, "Greetings, Lord Mu." After the assassination attempt failed in the ice-fire wasteland, those people still did not give up. If not for Fiend Cloud Hall, I would have died several times over the past few years. A resplendent saber light flashed above Fiend Cloud Hall. This saber light disappeared in a flash. The saber light was too fast. Even a regular sovereign emperor would not be able to see it clearly. If one was weaker, they might not even see it. Immediately, light and shadows appeared on Xiao Chen's body. Dragon might spread out, looking solid. Xiao Chen turned back to take one last look at the Holy Domain's divine capital. He could vaguely sense that someone was watching him. If it were a regular cultivation technique, even Xiao Chen's Purple Thunder divine incantation, refining divine energy would be difficult. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come. Mu Zifeng asked with some surprise. Clearly, he had some understanding of Shi Mu's reputation. Only today did he suddenly realize that there was such a hidden danger. For the past 5 years, he could have lost his life at any moment. Although this Xiao Chen is not my disciple, he has, after all, stayed in this Demon Cloud Hall for 5 years. Benwei, I have something to tell you. A silhouette dashed out with a terrifying aura that caused time and space to freeze. I am 500,000 kilometers away from Fiend Cloud Palace, a miserable shriek rang out. After a long time, Lu Benwei suddenly appeared. Then, he said softly, "It is as you guessed. There are indeed foe gods receiving them from behind. They are golden dragon race experts with horrifying strength." Lu Benwei nodded and listened attentively. Damn it! Everyone saw a golden dragon image vanish. In the next moment, the owner of that figure was covered in shattered bones. Only a boundless scarlet light flew in all directions. Goodbye. I'll have to trouble you all to take care of Senior Shimu in the future. Big Brother Lu, thank you for taking care of me for the past few years. Xiao Chen had not expected the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor to have such a relationship with this Lord Mu. This was the first time Xiao Chen used his divine energy to form a dragon roar. Now, his dragon might had an additional divine nature. Compared to before, it was like heaven and earth. Xiao Chen recited the 10,000 dragons art and slowly circulated his energy. Ripples appeared on his divine energy sea, and waves slowly rose and fell. So, he is protecting me. No wonder, this senior fiendish saber wants me to stay in Fiend Cloud Palace for the last 3 days. Unexpectedly, you have been staying in Fiend Cloud Palace for the past few years. This Shimu is famous for his strange temper. It is incredible that you can stay here even though you are not his disciple. When that dragon image scattered, fiendish saber Shimu's face quickly aged, turning back into that of an old man. I have to make a trip to the Blue Dragon ancient city as soon as possible, Xiao Chen lamented the danger of his situation. Without any trump cards in hand, he did not feel safe at all. When he went out to check, he would still be in the dark, not knowing anything. Xiao Chen nodded to indicate that he understood. 3 days later, Mu Zifeng arrived at Fiend Cloud Palace, preparing to bring Xiao Chen back to the Heavenly Alliance. However, this 10,000 dragons art only managed to condense one dragon image after 4 hours. The progress was simply too slow. This was a grudge between Xiao Chen and the Golden Dragon bloodline. He did not want to drag the Heavenly Alliance into it, not wanting to create too much trouble. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat. After thinking for a while, he did not say anything. If Xiao Chen were strong enough and followed that line of sight, he would discover a mask on that figure's face. However, based on the three's unwilling expressions, it was clear that they had to give Lu Benwei face and could not rebut. Shimu smiled coldly and said, "How is this seeking trouble? This is taking his life. This fellow is about to leave. That group of people will definitely be driven to desperate measures. If we turn a blind eye, we will be taking a risk." Scram! According to the records in the secret manual, one could only truly grasp the basics of this cultivation technique after one condensed a 10,000 dragons picture above one's divine energy sea. If not for cultivating the 10,000 dragons art and sharpening his senses, Shimu would not have been able to catch that faint light. It looks like little brother Xiao Chen has indeed offended some incredible people in the dragon race. However, Master's action this time shows Master's attitude. At the very least, no one will seek trouble for Xiao Chen for some time. This way, Shimu and Shimu were much closer. "Brother Xiao Chen, take care. I wish you a bright future in the Heavenly Alliance." Shimu braced himself and said some polite words. Going to a foe god's dojo to hide was disrespectful. Any foe god would get angry. Xiao Chen could only go to the Blue Dragon Ancient City. Only there could he have a trump card to protect himself. Alright. There is no need to be so polite. The Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor and I are old acquaintances. Back then, we risked our lives together. Unfortunately, he made his own choice. Otherwise, he would not be much weaker than me. You are his disciple. Although he did not ask me to take care of you, there is no need to be so distant. Mu Zifeng smiled faintly and waved his hand. A bright light flashed in Mu Zifeng's eyes. He was very meticulous, figuring out some other meaning from Lu Benwei's words. Cultivating immortal and Buddha together, divine and demonic as one, this was Xiao Chen's martial Tao. Come, then. Come with me to the Heavenly Alliance to officially confirm your identity. Humph. Shimu snarled, "You are really seeking death." If it were in the past, I would definitely charge my way to Bushin Palace to seek an explanation for bullying me like this. This farewell meant that Xiao Chen would be leaving the foe god world for good. He did not know when he would return. Ah! Senior Fiendish Saber, spare me. This was especially so for Zhang Yushan. He felt somewhat unnatural when he saw Xiao Chen. The junior brother at the side found it strange and asked, "Senior brother, why do you keep touching your face? The swelling has already subsided. There is no need to be afraid." 10,000 dragons art, soaring dragons dancing, playing with the sea and clouds, diving, flying, or hiding in the depths. It encompasses all the dragons in the world, using the 10,000 dragons to soar and return to the origin, condensing the ancestor dragon's origin. The saber light recovered, and the air rippled. In an instant, it radiated for thousands of kilometers. Space seemed to surge like waves. As they surged, saber intent spread to every corner of space. After leaving Fiendish Cloud Hall, Mu Zifeng asked, "Xiao Chen, did you encounter anything in the foe god world?" When Xiao Chen thought about it, he found it somewhat terrifying. Life in the foe god world was rather peaceful and dull. In the past few years, Xiao Chen had been immersed in bitter cultivation, comprehending the Saber Dao domain. He could not afford to be distracted, nor did he think that he would run into any danger in Fiendish Cloud Hall. Xiao Chen gave Lu Benwei a meaningful look. Then, he performed a cupped fist salute and bowed. Plop! Plop! This 10,000 dragons art was not easy to cultivate. Xiao Chen had read through any cultivation technique in the past once or twice, and he could circulate it as he pleased. He would be able to operate it freely and control it as he pleased. Xiao Chen sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. Then, he used the 10,000 dragons art to drive the divine energy sea. The surface of the sea immediately rippled. Miserable shrieks that came from the depths of Xiao Chen's soul rang out. All the fleeing scarlet light was destroyed. No wonder Big Brother Lu often cultivated outside my room in the past 5 years, nearly always by my side. They saw a handsome, demon-like young man holding a long saber in his hand. However, now that so many people were present, he could not afford to flare up. He could only follow Lu Benwei and send off Xiao Chen. If Xiao Chen follows me, nothing will happen. Why did Lu Benwei purposely say all that nonsense? The remaining scarlet light condensed into a golden dragon image. At this moment, that golden light was incredibly weak, looking very miserable. It turned out that this handsome, fiendish youth was fiendish Saber Shimu. Shimu said coldly, "In the past 5 years, you have been wandering around my fiendish cloud peak many times. I treated you as if you did not exist. Did you really think that I did not see you?" Whoosh! Chapter 2180. The boundless starry heavens, the boundless universe, a supercontinent floated in the sky. From a distance, it looked like it was made of 7 golden shards. This supercontinent looked boundlessly vast in the starry heavens, flickering with golden light. The thousands of stars in the surroundings looked like lanterns dotting its surroundings. This was a true supercontinent. Even the stars looked incredibly insignificant before it, like the light of a firefly. What was even more exaggerated was that there seemed to be people using cauldrons to refine stars, using the flames of the stars to forge secret treasures. Occasionally, huge fireballs flickered like meteors on this vast supercontinent. One might think that they were really meteors, but in reality, they were just sparks shot out by blacksmiths during forging. At first glance, the enormous artifact cauldrons were like mountains that stood tall and straight, unending and rising and falling indeterminately. If one had good eyesight, one would be able to count a total of 9,800 cauldrons. These cauldrons lined up on this supercontinent, looking like a coiled ancient dragon. The flames in the cauldrons flickered like day and night alternating. However, this was just the tip of the iceberg on this supercontinent. There were also boundless herb fields and medicine cauldrons belonging to alchemists in the herb fields. Aside from refining alchemy and refining blacksmiths, which were the 2 industries most closely related to cultivators, there were also many other industries. On this supercontinent, everything related to food, clothing, housing, and transportation, everything related to business, could be seen. You could see a grand scene that would make you gasp in amazement. Various major trades intersected with each other, densely packed like ants occupying this supercontinent. However, everything was orderly, busy, but not chaotic. It was like an invisible hand was controlling everything. This was the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters. Even though Xiao Chen had seen it from afar before, he still felt incredibly shocked when he saw it again on Mu Zifeng's alloy warship. The alloy warship flew over the Heavenly Alliance's supercontinent, heading for the center. Along the way, the many sceneries that Xiao Chen saw left a deep impression on him. Given the alloy warship's startling speed, they flew for half a day before arriving at the center of this supercontinent. There was a sea of clouds there. The floating white clouds looked solid. Many buildings stood on the white clouds, looking very strange. Heaven outside. Xiao Chen followed Mu Zifeng down and arrived above the white clouds. Soon, he saw a towering mountain gate with the ancient words, "Heaven outside," written on it. After you enter this gate, you will enter the core of the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters. Come, I'll bring you in. Mu Zifeng led Xiao Chen in, feeling familiar with the place. Along the way, Mu Zifeng performed a cupped fist salute, not daring to ask. Now, the Heaven Alliance is a very complicated organization, and its internal power is in a mess. However, to put it simply, we, the Heavenly Alliance members, exist to protect the interests of the merchant associations under the Heavenly Alliance. You should know that the Heavenly Alliance members exist in the 1,000 Great Realms. As long as there are cultivators, there will be merchant associations controlled by the Heavenly Alliance. However, as long as there are benefits, there will be disputes. We are responsible for resolving disputes. As Mu Zifeng walked, he explained the Heavenly Alliance's internal structure to Xiao Chen. These were things one needed to know to join the Heavenly Alliance. As Heavenly Alliance members, we have nothing to do with those merchant associations. As Mu Zifeng walked, he explained the Heavenly Alliance's internal structure to Xiao Chen. However, you have to remember that the Heavenly Alliance is the Heavenly Alliance, and the merchant associations are the merchant associations. Now, we are members of the Heavenly Alliance and have nothing to do with those merchant associations. Even Mu Zifeng felt slightly stunned when he heard that. However, he did not say anything about it. It was more or less the same as what the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor said. Even Mu Zifeng had to make this clear to Xiao Chen. As for you, I believe that you are about the same as the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor. You will not have too many thoughts about authority. In fact, you might not even be able to stay in the Heavenly Alliance for long. In that case, you have even less to worry about. Mu Zifeng seemed to be speaking casually. Xiao Chen did not comment, but he did not object. You want to use the Heavenly Alliance's resources to advance your own martial Dao. There are many cultivators like you in the Heavenly Alliance, so you don't have to think too much. The Heavenly Alliance will not give you resources for nothing, nor will it let you work for nothing. Everyone is mutually beneficial. Using each other. Mu Zifeng did not say it out loud. Instead, he changed it to mutually beneficial. Xiao Chen remained indifferent, not paying much attention to this. In the end, this was a super faction established by the merchant associations. Compared to a sect, the Heavenly Alliance lacked a spiritual inheritance, making it hard to integrate. What do I need to do in the Heavenly Alliance? Xiao Chen asked. He saw many people coming and going in heaven outside of heaven. However, they came and went in a hurry, not conversing much with each other, appearing somewhat cold. Mu Zifeng smiled and said, the Heavenly Alliance has endless problems to deal with. You are new here, so you will have to work harder. Take out your Heavenly Alliance medallion. As promised, Xiao Chen took out the medallion. The back of the medallion showed a vast snowy scene with an indistinct 8-petal plum blossom in the snowy scene. Only one petal lit up. Mu Zifeng smiled faintly and extended his hand. Then, another petal lit up. After lighting up one petal, you are considered a probationary member. After advancing to Sovereign Emperor, you are a formal member and can light up too. In the Heavenly Alliance, you are considered the lowest ranked member. Before you light up 3-petal, you can only remain in heaven outside of heaven, unable to go anywhere. Mu Zifeng's next words made Xiao Chen's expression change slightly in confusion. How do I light up 3-petal? Contribution. You have to work for the Heavenly Alliance and deal with the Heavenly Alliance's problems. The amount of contribution you obtain depends on the size of the problem. After lighting up 3-petal, you can go in and out freely. However, you still cannot leave the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters. Only after lighting up 4-petal are you truly free. At that time, you can choose to remain in the Heavenly Alliance or leave. Mu Zifeng said after some thought, back then, the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor entered the Heavenly Alliance with me. After he lit up 4-petal, he chose to leave, becoming an 8-vein Sovereign Emperor. I chose to stay, so you can see that I am now a Core Doyen, a 7-petal Plum Blossom, a 9-vein Sovereign Emperor, a half-god. Xiao Chen entered deep thought. Mu Zifeng's words were a hint to Xiao Chen. If Xiao Chen chose to stay and continue climbing the ranks to enter the Heavenly Alliance's core, he would gain even greater benefits. The Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor chose to leave. Now, he was only an 8-vein Sovereign Emperor. However, Xiao Chen was already a 9-vein Sovereign Emperor, a half-god. The two chatted as they walked. Xiao Chen gained a rough understanding of the members who lit up only 2-petal. They did not have much authority in the Heavenly Alliance, only duties. This place had a strict hierarchy and strict order. The higher-ranked members had overwhelming privileges over the lower-ranked members. This was a form of motivation for the Heavenly Alliance's members to work hard to deal with the Heavenly Alliance's problems and raise their status. As for contribution, it was similar to the sect's mission hall. However, in the Heavenly Alliance, one did not have much authority to refuse or choose. The two petal members could not even choose their own missions. The Heavenly Alliance had to make arrangements for them. No matter what the mission was, one did not have the authority to refuse. If one completed it, one would be rewarded. If one failed, one would be punished, losing contribution points. As Xiaoqin spoke, he suddenly felt the divine energy sea in his body stir for some reason. Xiao Chen's divine energy sea surged, and his entire body felt indescribably carefree. A great temptation drew him. "This is," Xiaoqin muttered as he looked at a towering mountain in front. The temptation came from this mountain. To think that there was a mountain above the cloud sea. This was a spiritual mountain that contained divinity. The higher one went, the stronger the divinity. One could even see faint divine light overflowing from the shining mountain. At the peak of the mountain, the divine light was so bright that it was somewhat dazzling. This is the Heavenly Divine Mountain. The Heavenly Alliance gathered boundless resources to build this divine mountain. There are boundless benefits for a divine Vane Realm sovereign emperor to cultivate on this mountain. However, you can only stay at the foot of the mountain now and cannot climb it. Mu Zifeng explained softly. After arriving at the foot of the divine mountain, Mu Zifeng got someone to arrange a residence for Xiaoqin. Then, he said, "You can stay here first. You can walk around more when you have time. There are no forbidden lands in this heaven beyond heaven. I'll take my leave first. Lord Mu, take care." Xiaoqin turned his head and looked at his residence. Then, he nodded slightly, feeling satisfied. "Young Master Xiao, do you have any instructions?" As Mu Zifeng had personally brought Xiaoqin over, the old man responsible for the handover did not dare to slight him. Xiaoqin shook his head and said, "No." "All right, I'll go and arrange for servants for young Master Xiao. If you have any instructions in the future, you can come and look for this old man at any time." The gray-clad old man performed a cupped fist salute and took his leave. Arranging for servants is probably a form of monitoring. Xiaoqin sighed in his heart. The Heavenly Alliance is colder than I thought. However, this is understandable. They are not related. How can it be that easy to obtain resources? After entering the residence, Xiaoqin wandered around. This place was much better than his residence in the Heaven Dragon Palace. Aside from the necessities for cultivation, there were all sorts of facilities. This was simply a noble residence. There was even a spirit beast pavilion with all sorts of spirit beasts. After Xiaoqin wandered around, the old man's servants arrived at the entrance of the residence. The leader was a pretty maidservant. Many male and female servants followed behind her, all of them kneeling respectfully. These servants even had all sorts of items placed on top of their heads. "Young Master, this servant Bao will be responsible for young Master's daily life in the Heavenly Alliance." "What is your name?" "This servant is Bao. The pretty maidservant replied softly, feeling somewhat bashful. When Xiaoqin heard that, he became somewhat distracted. Bao. Long ago, he had a maidservant called Bao as well. After that, he did not have another maidservant. This was truly a distant memory. "Young Master?" Bao asked, finding it strange when she saw Xiaoqin in a daze. Xiaoqin recovered his wits and said softly, "I am older than you. Just call me Big Brother Xiao. There is no need to address me as Master." "Alright, Big Brother Xiao. If there are any areas of this residence that require improvement, I'll get the servants to design them for you." Xiaoqin waved his hand and said, "There's no need. Let them in first. They just have to help me tidy up." "Alright." As the group of servants entered in a single file, Xiaoqin looked around, trying to find the eyes and ears of the Heavenly Alliance. However, after thinking about it, he chose to give up. So what if he found them? If he kept his guard up, he might end up attracting more attention. At that time, he would be even more problematic. Chapter 2181. Under Bao's arrangements, the group quickly cleaned up the residence. To Xiaoqin, the residence was already very clean. However, after this cleaning, it actually looked brighter. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it looked brand new. The flowers and grass were trimmed, the walls and doors were repainted, and incense lamps were lit in the room. Wherever one went, one could smell a fresh fragrance, making one feel refreshed. Xiao Qin sighed. Having servants and not having servants were indeed two different living environments. Big brother Xiao, I have cleaned up the entire residence for you. This herb field has not been developed yet. If you have natural treasures or other spirit herbs, you can replant them here or go to a shop to buy the seeds you need. There are apothecary disciples among the servants who specialize in this. There will also be professionals taking care of those spirit beasts. I guarantee that they will not suffer any losses. Bao bowed slightly and asked, is Big Brother Xiao satisfied? When Xiao Qin heard that, he entered deep thought. He could put the herb field aside for now. After all, he was not an alchemist. He did not cultivate cultivation techniques that required natural treasures. However, he could think about the spirit beasts first. Xiao Qin had not had the time to take care of the demon blood vulture, basically letting it roam. With professionals taking care of it, it should be better. Who is in charge of rearing the spirit beasts? Xiao Qin asked, and an old man immediately appeared. He knelt before Xiao Qin and said, Little master, this old servant is in charge of the spirit beasts. Just call me Elder Lu. Master, what instructions do you have? Whoosh! A flash of red light appeared, and the demon blood vulture appeared on Xiao Qin's shoulder. Its wings were scarlet, glistening, and exceptionally beautiful. Do you recognize this bird? Elder Lu's eyes lit up as he answered, This is a demon blood vulture. Rumor has it that it lives in the Ash-Gray Sea, one of the 7 great forbidden seas. Its race is isolated from the rest of the world and hard to capture. It feeds on demonic nature and can consume any demonic nature in the world, growing infinitely. If one can activate its bloodline and feed its spirit blood fruits, it might even be able to recover its ancestral blood and become a great desolate and ferocious beast, the blood phoenix. Master, this demon blood vulture is incredible. Its eyes are golden. It must have an extremely noble bloodline in the demon blood vulture race. What's even rarer is that his bloodline seems to have mutated. There's a very good chance that he'll become a blood phoenix. Hee, of course. My father is the blood vulture king. How can my bloodline not be noble? This old man has good eyesight. I can let him serve me. The demon blood vulture's cocky voice rang out in Xiao Qin's mind. Ignoring it, Xiao Qin sized up the old man and was surprised. He really knew a lot. There were many things that he had never heard of before. However, he still had to continue experimenting. Then, do you know how to nurture the demon blood vulture? Senior Lu smiled and said, This old servant grew up in the beast-taming abode. I spent all my time raising 9,000 kinds of spirit beasts and demonic pets in the world. Although I have never raised a demon blood vulture before, I still know the method. At the side, Bao said softly, Big brother Xiao, this Uncle Lu is a treasure. Xiao Qin once nurtured an underworld ghost bird into a 9-vein sovereign emperor mutated beast. He was one of the top beast tamers in the Heavenly Alliance. If it wasn't for Lord Mu's order, he wouldn't have come with me. Xiao Qin raised his eyebrows and said softly, My eyesight is poor. I could not tell that Senior Lu was so capable. Sorry for the disrespect. No one in the Heavenly Alliance can be underestimated. What about you? Xiao Qin turned his head to look at Bao and asked her, changing the topic. Bao's expression did not change. She smiled mischievously and said, How can I be capable? I'm just a maid who helps Big Brother Xiao dress and make his bed, serve tea, and pour water. Xiao Qin smiled faintly and did not pursue the matter. He continued, Senior Lu, tell me how to raise this demon blood vulture. Senior Lu nodded and said, That will depend on how much resources Master gives me. If there are enough resources, I will definitely feed it demonic spirit fruits every day and bring it to the blood prison once every half a month. Then, I will go to the spirit beast palace to exchange for cultivation techniques and martial techniques for demonic pets. This will also depend on how master raises it. You can raise it in all aspects or focus on one attribute, like speed, killing intent, or devouring. The demon blood vulture is a rather well-rounded demonic pet. You can raise it however you want. It will depend on master's preferences. Xiaochen thought for a while. This Senior Lu is really knowledgeable. He asked in his heart, Demon blood vulture, are you willing to follow me? Hee. I'm already drooling, the answer went without saying. Xiaochen said, from today on, you will be in charge of raising the demon blood vulture. Don't be stingy with resources. May I ask, what is the currency used for transactions in the Heavenly Alliance? Bao replied softly, any currency in the Heavenly Alliance will do. After all, we are doing business. Spirit jades, primeval heavenly pills, origin liquid, and divine crystals will do. However, we usually use origin liquid. Xiaochen entered deep thought. Then, he took out the primeval heavenly pills in his storage ring and the 10,000-year-old herb kings he obtained in paradise and handed them to Bao. Help me exchange them for origin liquid. From today on, you will be in charge of all the expenses in the residence. The amount that Xiaochen took out was a huge sum, especially the 10,000-year-old herb kings. Originally, Xiaochen intended to use these herb kings for himself. However, there was no point in using them after refining the Thunder Cliff tree. When Bao received all this, she did not feel shocked at all. Xiaochen sighed in his heart. Even the servants of the Heavenly Alliance are servants who have seen the world. Big brother Xiao, thank you for your trust. I will help young master settle this matter within half a day. After Bao counted the items, she agreed without hesitation. In that case, you all can withdraw first. I need to rest for a while. Alright. After the group took their leave, Xiaochen went to a medicinal spring in the residence alone. The spring water surged, and spiritual energy spread everywhere. This was a medicinal spring that the Heavenly Alliance's alchemists specially refined for sovereign emperors. After soaking in it, one could eliminate fatigue, nourish one's mind, and remove hidden injuries. If one spent some origin liquid, one could add in medicinal pills to aid one's cultivation. The warm spring water made Xiaochen feel exceptionally comfortable as he soaked in it. After he closed his eyes, he actually felt drowsy. After advancing to Sovereign Emperor, cultivators basically did not need to sleep. In fact, they found it very difficult to sleep. If one wanted to rest, one only needed to enter a meditative state. However, falling asleep would be somewhat difficult. Many people even found it impossible to fall asleep. Their spiritual sense would remain somewhat awake. However, in reality, sleep was the best nourishment for sovereign emperors. It was even beneficial to cultivation. There should be spirit herbs for calming the mind in the medicinal spring. Otherwise, it would not be so effective. Xiaochen did not reject this drowsiness, so he fell asleep. When he woke up, Xiaochen felt refreshed and full of energy. He looked around and discovered that Bao was already standing across from him, holding a white towel in her hand. Mist wafted out. When looking at Bao, who was not far away, he felt like he was looking at flowers in the mist, a hazy yet intense sense of beauty. Splash! Splash! Bao stood up and splashed the spring water. Then, she walked over and wiped down Xiaochen's body, then helped him put on his clothes. Xiaochen did not want to stand out in the Heavenly Alliance. Furthermore, he had nothing else on his mind, so he did not avoid these things and did not refuse. Bao found this somewhat strange. Unexpectedly, there were many scars on Xiaochen's body. They were not as clean as his delicate facial features. Some of the scars even layered over each other. The crisscrossing scars all over his body looked somewhat sinister and scary. When Bao finished helping Xiaochen put on his clothes, she still felt somewhat unsettled. How long was I asleep? Big Brother Xiao happened to have slept for a night. I have already completed the task that you instructed me to do yesterday. I exchanged for a total of 50 tons of origin liquid. I gave old Lu half, and the rest is with me. Does young master need it? Not for now. Keep it for me first. Xiao Qin still had 25 tons of origin liquid on him. That was sufficient for regular cultivation. However, he had not opened his first divine vein yet, so he did not need so much origin liquid. All right. After hesitating for a while, Bauer said, young master had best not cultivate for now. You can continue resting. When the Heavenly Alliance's missions come, you might not have time to rest. I'll listen to you. Hence, aside from occasionally cultivating, Xiao Qin spent the rest of his time wandering around the residence. The residence was very large. There were several places that Xiao Qin had not explored. Now was an opportunity. Only 2 days passed peacefully. Then, Xiao Qian's first mission in the Heavenly Alliance arrived. A black-clad administrator hovered above Xiao Qian's residence and said, Heavenly Alliance 2-petal member Xiao Qian, heed my orders. A local sect elder in the Ink Sea cluster is advancing to Sovereign Emperor, threatening the Merchant Association's interests. I order you to go and deal with this problem for the Alliance within 10 days. Otherwise, you will fail the mission, and you will be severely punished. Whoosh! A jade strip fell. Xiao Qin stretched out his hand and caught the jade strip. Then, he placed it on his forehead and checked it, gaining a rough understanding of the situation. Big Brother Xiao, should I get old Lu to call the demon blood vulture over? Bauer asked. There's no need. The demon blood vulture is in the early stages of nurturing and is not suited for battle. Help me take care of the residents. Xiao Qian's figure flashed, and he followed the administrator to the Heavenly Alliance's Dao platform. Chapter 2182. The Constellation Zone referred to the Constellation Zone. In the Great Thousand Worlds, there was a sea of stars at the center of many star fields, and then they were named after the sea. For example, the Grave Sea cluster that Xiao Qin once stayed in. The various cluster zones were now like stars surrounding the moon, surrounding the central Great Realm. The outer regions that the central Great World cultivators spoke of mostly referred to these cluster zones. In the eyes of the central Great World cultivators, the outer regions were like the countryside. Apart from some special clusters in the outer Endless Sea, most of the outer Endless Sea clusters didn't have enough connate spiritual qi, and the inheritances weren't complete enough, so the competition wasn't fierce enough. It was very difficult for an imperial lord to be born. As a sovereign personage, one could dominate the outer seas and enjoy the treatment of the central Great Realm's foe gods. The Grave Sea cluster that Xiao Qin once stayed in was like this. On the surface, it did not have a single sovereign personage. Perhaps only some rank 4 sects had sovereign personages nearing the end of their lifespans. Normally, such sovereign personages would not appear. The Ink Sea cluster was much stronger than the Grave Sea cluster. It had 2 rank 5 sects, and the sect masters were sovereign personages. Many of the supreme elders were heaven-defying sovereign personages and even false emperors. However, in the past 1,000 years, there had never been an imperial lord. The various factions maintained a delicate balance, but now, a rank 1 sect had an imperial lord. This was incredible. Xiao Qin was very clear about how strong a sovereign emperor was. In front of a sovereign emperor would only need one move to kill a sovereign emperor. No matter how many powerful trump cards one had, it would be useless. Even if one had a soul tool, it would only be a slight deterrent. If one side suddenly became stronger, the balance would be broken, and the original distribution of benefits would naturally need to be reshuffled. Xiao Qin was going to the Ink Sea cluster to protect the benefits of the Heavenly Alliance's subsidiary merchant associations. He could not give up his own benefits just because the other party had a sovereign emperor. The mission did not specify a specific solution. He could choose to kill this newly advanced imperial lord or negotiate with him. There were many methods, but there was only one goal, to ensure the benefits of the Heavenly Alliance's affiliated merchant associations. The better this task was done, the higher the merit would be. Otherwise, there would be punishment. Using the Dao platform at Sky Beyond Heaven, Xiaochen teleported to a Dao platform near the Ink Sea cluster. This Dao platform belonged to everyone, not the Heavenly Alliance alone. By the time Xiaochen set foot on the Ink Sea, half a day had passed. Xiaochen clearly sensed the difference between the spiritual energy of this place and the Central Great Realm's spiritual energy. 9 Cauldron Pavilion. The Heavenly Alliance's subsidiary merchant association here was the 9 Cauldron Pavilion. When Xiaochen thought about it, he felt that he had some fate with the 9 Cauldron Pavilion. If he remembered correctly, he had a VIP card in the 9 Cauldron Pavilion. Let's go to the 9 Cauldron Pavilion's headquarters in the Ink Sea first. The Starry Sea possessed a great gravitational pull. If one was not careful, they would be sucked in. The Starry Sea possessed a corrosive nature. If one's cultivation was not high enough, falling into it would be life-threatening. Xiaochen recalled that when they first arrived at the Grave Sea, Xiaochen and Xiao Sua's group had been very careful, not daring to let down their guard at all. Now that Xiaochen was a sovereign emperor, he did not need to worry too much. He turned into a bolt of lightning above the Ink Sea, piercing through the clouds without fear. 2 hours later, an island that could be called a continent appeared in front of Xiaochen. This was the largest island in the Ink Sea, Red Cloud Island. The headquarters of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion was there. Normally speaking, since it was called Red Cloud Island, the largest city on the island would be called Red Cloud City. Red Cloud Island was not surprised. As Xiaochen swaggered into the city, none of the guards or experts in the city noticed him. Hovering in the air, Xiaochen swept his gaze around, spreading his spiritual sense to every corner of the city. In the next moment, his figure flashed, leaving behind a faint purple mark. When he reappeared, he was already at the entrance of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion. The 9 Cauldron Pavilion was tall and majestic, occupying the best location. However, the entrance was somewhat deserted. This did not match the reputation of the top merchant association in the Ink Sea. Xiaochen guessed something and directly entered. "This young master, are you here to buy something?" Upon seeing Xiaochen appear, a pretty maidservant with a faint smile immediately came forward to greet him. "Long Yun, withdraw. I'll take care of this guest." Before Xiaochen could answer, a spirited old man in embroidered robes with a flushed complexion walked out of the hall's staircase. The maidservant gave Xiaochen a strange look before withdrawing. However, she could not understand why the pavilion master would personally receive a youth. "This old man's family name is Qin, and my first name is Pa. May I ask for young master's great name?" the embroidered robed old man said to Xiaochen with a smile as he walked down. Whoosh! This old man must have figured something out. Xiaochen did not bother speaking nonsense with him. He flashed his Heavenly Alliance medallion in front of the old man. Qin Po's expression did not change. He said seriously, "Young master, please come with me." When Xiaochen arrived at the private room at the top floor, Qin Po's expression changed drastically. He performed an incredibly respectful cupped fist salute and said, "Greetings, milord. I did not want to attract attention earlier, so I did not greet you properly. Milord, please forgive me." Xiaochen sat on a mahogany chair with a calm expression, indicating that he did not mind. He said softly, "Xiaochen, Grasshead Xiao, Morning Sunday. I do not like to speak nonsense, so please do your best to give a simple introduction of the situation. I will deal with you within 10 days. Very well, milord. Qin Po was very careful, not daring to be slow. This was a major character from the Heavenly Alliance. He could not afford to offend him. Even though Qin Po had seen many major scenes, he still felt somewhat nervous. After calming himself, he said, "The Ink Sea has 2 rank 5 sects, the Flying Cloud sect and the Azure Smoke Pavilion. 2 years ago, the Azure Smoke Pavilion's Supreme Elder, Qingyan Shengren, advanced to Sovereign Emperor. Half a year after that, the Azure Smoke Pavilion took 70% of the Ink Sea's resources. The other factions shared the remaining 30%. The Azure Smoke Pavilion has always done business with our merchant association. In the past, we earned 70%, and they earned 30%. After Qin Yen Shengren advanced to Sovereign Emperor, he demanded an exorbitant price. To think that he wanted us to take only 2%, while they wanted 80%. Xiaoqin entered deep thought. The Ink Sea's resources were definitely in the hands of the sections. However, if the sects wanted to develop, they needed to work with the Merchant Association to maximize the benefits of the resources. This could be considered mutually benefiting, helping each other out. There were many ways to do this. However, it was very simple. It was just that whoever was stronger would benefit more. In the past, when the various factions interfered, the Nine Cauldron Pavilion could gain 70% of the profits. However, the situation changed now. The Azure Smoke Pavilion produced a sovereign emperor. The Nine Cauldron Pavilion could not gain any advantage, even getting bullied. There was no need to probe too deeply into the business matters, they had nothing to do with him. Xiaoqin grasped the main point. He asked seriously, he advanced to Sovereign Emperor 2 years ago. Yes. I reported this matter to the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters 2 years ago. However, we never received any attention, Qin Pa said helplessly. Xiaoqin thought to himself, it is not that we do not pay attention. It is just that we do not have enough manpower. Continue. Right. He wanted 80% of the profits. Naturally, we refused. After that, the Azure Smoke Pavilion stopped doing business with us. Instead, they supported a small merchant association and secretly suppressed us. For the past 2 years, we have nearly lost all of our business. You saw how bleak our business is now. Xiaoqin felt doubtful. How can a small merchant association compare to the Nine Cauldron Pavilion? The Nine Cauldron Pavilion had branches in the Central Great Realm. In terms of strength and accumulations, a small merchant association could not compare to it. In a fair competition, the Nine Cauldron Pavilion could take out more secret treasures, medicinal pills, cultivation techniques, and martial techniques than the other merchant associations. Qin Pa smiled bitterly. With the Azure Smoke Pavilion secretly supporting us, we cannot do business at all. The Merchant Association's cargo ships responsible for transporting resources have even been robbed a few times. During this period, they have been openly suppressing us. Several of my Nine Cauldron Pavilion's guards died. Qin Yen Shengren has already spread the word that all Azure Smoke Pavilion disciples are not allowed to do business with my Nine Cauldron Pavilion. On the surface, it looked like Qin Yen Shengren forbade the Azure Smoke Pavilion disciples from doing business with my Nine Cauldron Pavilion. In reality, it was a warning to all the cultivators in the Ink Sea. Who in the Ink Sea would dare to offend a sovereign emperor? Xiaoqin grasped the key point again. He asked seriously, he killed people from the Nine Cauldron Pavilion? Yes. With the Azure Smoke Pavilion supporting us, the other party does not have to worry. Xiaoqin said calmly, that's easy. What is that merchant association called? Qin Pa did not understand what Xiaoqin meant, but he still answered honestly, in the past, it was called the Red Cloud Merchant Association. Now, it is called the 10 Cauldron Pavilion. When Xiaoqin mentioned the name of the other party's merchant association, Qin Pa's expression turned even more unsightly. This name was a direct slap in the face. You have 9, and I have 10. This high-profile name is meant to suppress you. Is that Merchant Association's association chief in Red Cloud City? He has always been. Right after Qin Pa spoke, he looked up and saw that Xiaoqin had already disappeared from his chair. The curtains fluttered a few times, indicating that someone had just left. How fast? This startled Qin Pa. However, after he sat down, he felt somewhat uneasy. This Xiaoqin was simply too young. Xiaoqin's cold attitude also made Qin Pa feel somewhat unreliable. He muttered to himself, the Heavenly Alliance has not sent anyone for more than 2 years. Now that someone finally came, they sent a rash youth. Dang! Qin Pa did not see any commotion, but Xiaoqin appeared before him again. Qin raised his head and spat out all the tea in his mouth. Xiaochen held a head in his hand. It belonged to the head of the Red Cloud Merchant Association's association chief, whom Qin wished he could hack into 1,000 pieces. The other party appeared stunned. Based on his expression, he probably did not even know how he died. If Qin recalled correctly, this fellow was a holy venerate and had the protection of a heaven-defying sovereign personage from the Azure Smoke Pavilion. How did he die just like that? How did he do it? Before Qin could even warm his seat or drink his tea, Xiaochen returned after killing someone. Qin could not help feeling fear in his heart. He quickly stood up and said in a trembling voice, "Milord, I killed the person and demolished the 10 Cauldron Pavilion. Make your preparations. Business should be here in the next 2 days." Xiaochen said indifferently. His expression remained calm as if he had just done something unremarkable. However, killing a holy venerate before a heaven-defying sovereign personage was indeed an insignificant matter. However, Qin was already frightened silly. He said in a trembling voice, I'll go and make my preparations. This little one will take his leave first." "Wait a moment." Qin immediately asked in a fluster, "Milord, what instructions do you have?" "Send this head to the Azure Smoke Pavilion as quickly as possible." Qin immediately felt startled. "Milord, you are provoking Qingyan Shangren. You have to think this through. Just do as I say." "Why so much nonsense?" Xiaochen frowned slightly. Qin words made it sound like he should not provoke the other party. However, when Xiaochen thought about how the other party had been suppressed for a long time, it was understandable that he feared Qingyan Shangren. Xiaochen softened his tone and said softly, "I want to provoke him. The faster I deal with this problem, the more contribution I will obtain, and the more benefits your 9 Cauldron Pavilion will obtain." Yes. "I'll do it now." Qin immediately felt somewhat excited. This little lord's temper and boldness were really great. It looked like the 9 Cauldron Pavilion was going to turn things around. Chapter 2183. Ink Sea, Heavenly Cloud Mountain, one of the 3 blessed lands. A blessed land should have many sects, just like the Purple Flame sect, where Xiaochen once stayed, which was just one sect in the blessed land. However, this Ink Sea's Heavenly Cloud Mountain only had one sect, the Azure Smoke sect. The reason went without saying. Since a sovereign emperor appeared in the Azure Smoke sect, the Azure Smoke sect naturally wanted to monopolize all the benefits of this great blessed land. Disagree? If one dared to disagree before a sovereign emperor, it would be no different from seeking death. Right now, the Azure Smoke sect lived up to its name in the Ink Sea. No one dared to oppose it. The sect disciples were even more arrogant and despotic, considering everyone else beneath them. In the Ink Sea, no one dared to offend them. In an era when sovereign emperors did not appear, even the strongest false emperor could not be so domineering. After all, a rank 5 sect had a soul tool. Even a false emperor had to fear them. Everyone coexisted peacefully, living in harmony. However, now that a sovereign emperor appeared, a soul tool in the hands of a sovereign emperor and a sovereign personage were 2 different secret treasures. The might that a soul tool could bring out was completely different. In the hands of a sovereign emperor, the horrifying might of a soul tool could truly be brought out. In this Ink Sea, a sovereign emperor was a supreme god. But tonight, there was something wrong with the Azure Smoke sect. A rumor had spread through the entire sect, from top to bottom, from the mouth of all the disciples and elders. "Did you hear? Someone killed the 10 Cauldron Merchant Association's association chief. His head was delivered to our sect master last night. How could I not have heard about it? That fellow's death was really strange. He was not weak in the first place, and he had Marshal Grand Uncle Zhang's protection. However, he died just like that. Someone saw Marshal Uncle Jiang return last night. I heard that he was pale and dispirited, like he was scared silly. Who exactly is it? To think that he dares to provoke us. Does he not know that our Azure Smoke sect's ancestor is already a sovereign emperor? This is the most horrifying thing. He clearly knows that you are a sovereign emperor, yet he still dares to kill your people. The rumors were hard to stop. The 10 Cauldron Merchant Association's association chief was killed, and the entire Merchant Association's headquarters was torn down on the street. This was an earth-shattering matter in the Ink Sea. The various major factions received the news at the fastest time. The other factions had already received the news. It would be hard for the Azure Smoke sect disciples not to know about it. At this moment, the sect master and all the elders gathered in the Azure Smoke sect's ancestral hall at the main peak of Skycloud Mountain. Their expressions were incomparably grave as they looked at the items placed in the center of the hall in silence. That object was the head of the 10 Cauldron Chamber of Commerce's president. After the group of people received the heads, they discussed for an entire night, but they still couldn't come up with any ideas. The Azure Smoke sect's sect master, Luo Yun, did not look old, like a middle-aged man. He was dressed in a long green robe and had a scholarly temperament. There was a sharp aura hidden between his brows. That was the foundation of an overlord. Everyone, we've discussed for an entire night, but we still haven't come up with a good idea. Luo Yun glanced at the elders gathered in the ancestral hall and said in a deep voice. There were not many elders. However, even the weakest was a holy venerate. 4 or 5 of the older ones were even sovereign personages. The Azure Smoke sect's entire foundation was here. Even without Qingyan Shangren, the Azure Smoke sect could be considered a peak existence among rank 5 sections. Those who could stand here naturally had some vision. They could tell that this was not a simple murder. Before a heaven-defying person died, Shaoqin had silently killed another sovereign personage. Everyone was very clear on what kind of strength one needed to achieve this. This was especially so for that martial uncle Jiang. After he returned, he looked like he had seen a ghost. Clearly, he had suffered a huge trauma in his heart. A false emperor could not make martial uncle Jiang feel such fear. What kind of existence was above false emperor? No one dared to think about it, nor did they want to. They could only continue playing dumb when faced with Luo Yun's question. This is indeed making things difficult for everyone. Luo Yunlong, who was sitting on the throne, let out a soft sigh. There was a trace of exhaustion on his face. Originally, martial uncle Qingyan should have been in charge of this matter. Unfortunately, Qingyan Shangren was currently in closed-door cultivation. Even when Luo Yun summoned him several times, he ignored him. Naturally, there was no solution to this difficult problem before everyone. Actually, Luo Yun guessed something. As the sect master of a rank 5 sect, he naturally knew some of the secrets of the Central Great Realm. Several thousand years ago, a sovereign emperor had appeared in the Ink Sea cluster. However, that sovereign emperor did not unify the Ink Sea. There seemed to be an invisible hand controlling the Ink Sea's movements in the unseen world. This kept the various factions of the Ink Sea in balance, preventing one faction from becoming too strong and monopolizing the Ink Sea. Even though martial uncle Qingyan had become a sovereign emperor, Luo Yun did not want to drive the other factions to the edge. He feared that something bad would happen if this balance was broken. Although Luo Yun did not know what would happen, he still felt worried. However, martial uncle Qingyan was stubborn, and the other elders were eager to try. Even if Luo Yun wanted to, he could not. Over the past 2 odd years, the Azure Smoke sect had continuously grown stronger, showing a flourishing momentum. This further dispelled Luo Yun's worries. Unexpectedly, the thing he worried about the most happened. This sigh contained some helplessness. Luo Yun was limited by his knowledge and vision. He could guess something, but he did not know what was going on. This was the helplessness he felt the most. The 5 super factions secretly controlled the entire Great Thousand Realms. Without reaching a certain level, one would not know about this. Even many sovereign personages in the Central Great Realm did not know about the Heavenly Alliance. How much could Luo Yun, a rank 5 sect master of the Ink Sea, know? Martial nephew, what are you worrying about? This sigh is very puzzling. Ha! Just at this moment, laughter rang out. Then, a skinny old man suddenly appeared in the ancestral hall. Although this old man was skinny, his frail body gave off a frightening energy that could not be underestimated, appearing unfathomable. Old ancestor. You finally came out of closed-door cultivation. We were all scared out of our wits last night. Indeed. Quickly, think of a solution. This person was the most famous person in the Ink Sea for the past 2 years, the Qing Yen Shangren, whom nearly everyone knew. Luo Yun's eyes lit up. He felt that his martial uncle's strength had improved significantly, becoming even more unfathomable. He quickly stepped forward and said, "Martial uncle, please take a seat." Qing Yen Shangren did not stand on ceremony. He sat down in the seat that Luo Yun vacated. As he looked at the heads below, he smiled sinisterly. This fellow is finally dead. Whoosh! Qing Yen Shangren stretched out his hand, and the head of the 10 Cauldron Merchant Association's chief flew into his hand. Then, there was a loud bang. Only a skull remained amid the azure smoke. Qing Yen Shangren ferociously grabbed, and the skull turned into powder and fell to the ground. Everyone, including Luo Yun, showed startled expressions. This time, they were truly frightened. "Martial uncle." Luo Yun called out, feeling somewhat anxious. "This fellow is just a pawn that I placed in front of me. He will die sooner or later. It was worth it to be able to roam free for 2 years and suppress the 9 Cauldron Merchant Association." Qing Yen Shangren waved his hand and said, "As for the rest, martial nephew, there is no need to worry. I already made arrangements. If he had come a year earlier, I might have been in some trouble. As for now, haha. This old man is waiting for him. If he dares to come, I will make sure that he never returns. As you wish, I am here." Bang! Right after the old man spoke, the doors of the ancestral hall, which were reinforced by formations, shattered. A strong wind blew at the broken doors, and a dazzling light as bright as the sun appeared, so bright that no one could open their eyes. A figure slowly appeared from the light. This figure was dressed in white, and he strode in with his head held high. How young! When the azure smoke sect elders saw this person's appearance, they all sighed in their hearts, feeling somewhat shocked. This was the person that the old ancestor was waiting for. This was the mysterious person that scared their martial uncle Jiang silly. Yi Weimian looked too young. Based on his appearance, he did not even look 50 years old. Naturally, the person who came was Xiao Chen. The head had been delivered to the Azure Smoke sect for 1 night, but the person he was waiting for had not arrived yet. Not wanting to waste time, Xiao Chen came himself. "I was wondering why the person did not arrive after 1 night. It turns out that you already condensed a divine vein. How admirable! How admirable! It is already not easy for you to advance to Sovereign Emperor in this desolate place. Now that you have condensed a divine vein, it is even more shocking." Xiao Chen glanced indifferently at the somewhat blind people. Then, he said softly, "Do you not understand what I said? Even in the Central Great Realm, this martial granduncle of yours can be considered a top character." These words were true. Even in the Central Great Realm, it was extremely difficult to advance to Sovereign Emperor. Old ancestor, you, clearly, the Azure Smoke sect's elders did not know how strong Qing Yen Shangren was or where he ranked in the Central Great Realm. Qing Yen Shangren revealed a cocky expression, gladly accepting Xiao Chen's praise. Being able to advance to Sovereign Emperor in this Ink Sea already boosted Qing Yen Shangren's ambition, filling him with pride. This was the so-called instant success. However, that is all. In the end, the accumulations in the Ink Sea are lacking. Forcefully plundering the Ink Sea's resources to condense a divine vein is even more foolish. You probably do not even have a divine vein level cultivation technique to cultivate. Such a sovereign emperor would not be able to cause much trouble in the Central Great Realm. No wonder you only know how to put on airs in this Ink Sea. Who could have imagined that Xiao Chen would suddenly change the topic, belittling Qing Yen Shangren as worthless? Qing Yen Shangren was already extremely proud of advancing to Sovereign Emperor. He even felt that the sovereign emperors of the central great realm would not be much stronger than him. Earlier, Qing Yan Shengren enjoyed Xiao Chen's words. So, he prepared to negotiate with Xiao Chen about the Nine Cauldron Merchant Association. Who could have imagined that Xiao Chen's words would suddenly change the topic, deeply stabbing at Qing Yan Shengren's pride. Rage flared up in his heart. The atmosphere in the hall immediately turned strange. The azure smoke sect's elders were frightened into silence. Everyone could tell that this youth had touched on the old ancestors' reverse scale. An icy chill spread in the hall. Qing Yan Shengren showed a sullen expression, his skinny face filled with murderous intent. A great battle would start at any moment. Chapter 2184. The atmosphere in the ancestral hall turned strange. No one dared to speak. The group of elders, including Luo Yun, felt increasingly unbearable. The hall was so quiet that one could hear their breathing and heartbeats. Despite this unbearable feeling, they did not dare to move. It was like they feared breaking some sort of balance. Normally, these sovereign personages could call the wind and summon the rain in this ink sea cluster, supreme existences. Even though sovereign emperors appeared, sovereign personages were still incredibly rare in this ink sea cluster. Wherever they went, they were aloof and aloof. When had these sovereign emperors ever felt so unbearable? To put it bluntly, they did not even dare to let out a fart. The battle between Xiao Chen and Qing Yan Shengren had already started. The two's auras clashed, their auras spreading to every corner of the hall. Both were storing up power in secret, searching for the other's openings, trying to suppress the other's aura. The invisible auras were already incredibly intense. Everyone here was a sovereign personage and naturally understood the profoundness of this. At this moment, if anyone dared to move, it would be like adding oil to the fire. Bang! Everything would explode. It was like time stopped in the hall. No one moved at all, their expressions did not even change. Qing Yan Shengren felt somewhat shocked. Although this youth before him had not opened any divine veins, his aura moved according to his heart. However, his aura moved according to his will, moving as he pleased. There were no openings at all. It could be said to be perfect. Dragon images seemed to appear behind Xiao Chen, howling and roaring ferociously. That was dragon might. This was a powerful outstanding talent with a great desolate Ian bloodline. Ka Xie. Just at this moment, one of the Azure Smoke Hall elders felt somewhat unbearable, so he shifted his body slightly. However, the sound amplified infinitely at this moment. It was like a drop of water falling into a calm lake. However, it did not kick up ripples. Instead, it kicked up a deafening wave like a tsunami. Luo Yun's face sank. Knowing that things were bad, the group of elders executed their movement techniques and quickly moved far away. In that instant, the limit of stillness shifted to the limit of movement. It was like these people came back to life. The elders already moved very fast. However, they were not faster than Xiao Chen and Qing Yan Shengren. The incorporeal dragon image behind Xiao Chen gathered together, turning from incorporeal to corporeal, turning into a huge azure dragon image that roared furiously into the 9 heavens. Qing Yan Shengren's expression turned cold as he slapped the armrest heavily. He mobilized all the accumulations of the entire Qingyun Peak sect. The illusion of a huge incense burner appeared in front of him. There were 3 incense sticks in the incense burner, and green smoke curled around them. Qing Yan Shengren flicked his finger, and the lingering azure smoke immediately turned into thousands of sword images that shot out. The 2 auras collided in an instant. With a loud bang, the green smoke ancestral hall collapsed into nothingness. Puchi! Luo Yun and the other elders of the azure smoke hall spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. The weaker elders, who were only at the Holy Venerate realm, even died on the spot from the shockwaves of the 2 auras. Not only did Luo Yun and the others not have the qualifications to interfere in this battle, but they might even lose their lives if they were careless. When sovereign emperors fought, the scale of the battle was already beyond what these sovereign personages could imagine or resist. Dang! The melodious sound of weapons clashing rang out, echoing throughout the entire heavenly cloud mountain. This blessed land, which was as large as a great realm, buzzed endlessly and trembled. The heavenly cloud mountain was very large and vast. It was at least 100 million kilometers long. In the past, dozens of rank 4 sects lived in this place. One could easily imagine how vast it was. However, this heavenly cloud mountain was also very small. To Shao Qin and Qing Yan Shengren, who were fighting, just the shockwaves could cover most of heavenly cloud mountain. Whoosh! A purple figure retreated from heavenly cloud mountain's main peak. As he retreated, he crashed into many peaks, kicking up huge waves in the seawater. Shao Qin was not retreating alone. Instead, he was retreating with his aura. He did not crash into the tall peaks. Instead, his aura crushed them, turning them into surging tsunamis along with the seawater. Humph! How dare you disrespect me on Heavenly Cloud Mountain? Not to mention the fact that you have not opened a divine vein, even if you did, you would not be a match for me. Qing Yan Shengren stood proudly on the mountain summit. At this moment, his slender body seemed to contain boundless might, inspiring others to look up at him like looking at the sky. A strong wind blew as Qing Yan Shengren looked coldly at Shao Qin, who got knocked back. Then, he said sullenly, "You have a great background. I will not kill you. I will use you as a bargaining chip. My azure smoke pavilion will dominate the Ink Sea, and we will not have to worry about anything in the future." Old Ancestor. When the many Azure Smoke Pavilion disciples saw Qing Yan Shengren's majestic appearance and bold words, they felt their hot-bloodedness surge endlessly. Whoosh! Shao Qin gently pushed off the surface of the sea, stopping his retreating figure. At the same time, the surging mountain-like seawater slowly fell back. However, the way it fell was incredibly gentle, following Shao Qin's aura and spreading out again. What was even more miraculous was that the tall mountain that Shao Qin crushed earlier actually retreated together with the seawater. It looked like time and space had reversed. In reality, it was just reuniting with Shao Qin's aura. The mountain had already shattered. The mountain that Shao Qin saw was only the mountain that existed in Shao Qin's aura. It was like a painting. When Shao Qin retreated, the white clouds, mountains, rivers, and sunlight had already entered the painting. Now, the painting was just reuniting. Shao Qin looked at Qing Yan Shengren, who stood proudly on the main peak like he was the sovereign of the world. However, Shao Qin was not surprised at the other party's strength. A sovereign emperor's accumulations would not be child's play when a rank 5 sect erupted. However, since Shao Qin dared to come, he had to have considered the other party's geographical advantage. You are courageous. After seeing my Azure Smoke Pavilion's accumulations, you still dare to not flee. Youths are like this, not fearing anything, thinking that they are fated. Today, I will teach you a lesson and show you what fear is. Qing Yan Shengren smiled coldly. Then, he casually waved his hand, and the azure smoke lingering around the incense burner circled around his fingertip. At the instant his thumb and index finger came into contact with each other, countless sword cries resounded. They were loud and clear, and they seemed to descend from the heavens and descend from the netherworld. Since the establishment of the Azure Smoke Pavilion, the many disciples had been using their swords to visualize the incense burner every day. They used their bodies as swords to worship the incense burner, accumulating accumulations for 100 years, 1,000 years, countless days and nights. Qing Yan Shengren flicked his finger, and thousands of sword hums gathered. This sword hum pierced through the entire blessed land from north to south. Stimulated by this sword hum, Heavenly Cloud Mountain's 300-kilometer-tall main peak erupted with resplendent light, looking like a sharp sword illuminating the entire blessed land. Aside from the strand of sword light that Qing Yan Shengren flicked out for 50 million kilometers, only black and white remained in the world. The sword light illuminated Shao Qin's eyes, making his handsome facial features look even more distinct. The sword wind scattered Shao Qin's long hair, making him appear even more unruly and unruly. The sword light, which carried the sect's accumulations, looked like it could split the world apart. Then, it instantly charged over. Everyone in the Azure Smoke Pavilion gasped in amazement at this sword strike. They had only heard of the sect's founding ancestor in the legends, having once flicked out such a strand of sword chi. Now, they saw it with their own eyes. It was like the legends unfolded before them. The shock was indescribable. Everyone thought that Xiao Chen would die for sure under this sword strike. Even if he did not die, he would be severely injured, unable to fight anymore. Xiao Chen showed a grave expression, but he did not fluster in the face of danger. The yin and yang divine essence seas in his body silently merged, and the Taiji force field spread out. Whoosh! The instant the Taiji force field appeared, a light burst out from Xiao Chen's body in the originally black and white world. The entire world regained its color. This was Xiao Chen using his own strength to suppress the other party with his aura, breaking the momentum of this sword strike. However, Xiao Chen did not dare to receive this sword strike head-on. This sword strike carried the accumulations of a sect that had accumulated for thousands of years. If he tried to receive it, it would be like an ant trying to shake a tree, overestimating himself. Not to mention whether he could receive it or not, he would be too stupid to do so. After the sword chi entered the Taiji force field, it looked like it could travel through space and time. However, to Xiao Chen, it slowed significantly. Whoosh! Xiao Chen pushed off with his feet and gently moved, looking like he had dodged this sword strike by a fluke. When the sword chi entered the sea, it was like a stream flowing into the sea, silently vanishing. This was because the charm contained in the sword chi had automatically dissipated after losing its target, and the sect's foundation had returned to the mountains and rivers. He dodged it. This startled Qingyan Shangren. To think that Xiao Chen managed to dodge his sure-hit sword strike. He could not help saying angrily, "Let's see how many sword strikes you can dodge." Qingyan Shangren flicked his finger, and another strand of sword chi that seemed to travel through space and time charged at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless. He drove the primal chaos divine energy in his body to the limits and used the Taiji force field to carefully slow down Qingyan Shangren's speed, narrowly dodging again. Whoosh! 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 Damn it! I don't believe that I cannot kill you. Qingyan Shangren felt somewhat flustered and exasperated after failing to hit his target. He flicked his finger, and strands of sword intent shot at Xiao Chen without end. Day and night immediately sped up in the blessed land. Sometimes, only black and white remained. Another moment, the colors returned to normal. It was like the rising and setting of the sun were sped up. The Azure Smoke sect disciples were horrified to discover that as day and night sped up, their faces aged. Their fine black hair turned white. It was like time sped up several times. Let's see how long you can last. Under the berserk attacks, Xiao Chen appeared somewhat unable to hold out. Qingyan Shangren could not help laughing cockily. Just as he was about to make another move, enough. Xiao Chen, who had been silent all this while, suddenly shouted. This shout was like a clap of thunder, immediately kicking up countless huge waves on the vast sea. You are really vicious. Draining the sect's accumulations like this, completely disregarding the life and death of the disciples. I have a saber strike. Please give it a try. Gurgle. An unremarkable drop of seawater soared into the air amid the huge waves. Xiao Chen moved like a swallow, looking like he was about to fly but not soar. Then, he flicked his finger. Fiendish saber inheritance, water droplet shaking the firmament. Chapter 2185. A drop of water could break the vault of heaven. Qingyan Shangren used his one-vein sovereign emperor cultivation to drive the sect's 1,000-year-old accumulations. He used the 30-kilometer-tall peak under his feet as a sword, and hundreds of strands of sword chi could cause the mountains, rivers, sun, and moon to pale in comparison. Xiao Chen would be defeated with just one strike. Xiao Chen, who could drive Taiji with primal chaos divine energy, finally recovered. Xiao Chen's counterattack was as insignificant as a speck of dust in front of the sword chi of mountains and rivers. What he flicked out was a drop of water, a drop of rain, a drop of sweat that contained the inheritance of the devil blade. The scorching sun had tortured it for 3,333 years, the gale had battered it for 3,333 years, and the lightning had struck it for 3,333 years. Over the past 9,999 years, the thunderstorm, the gale, and the scorching sun could not change his heart. What is a demon? Lonely as I am, 10,000 years of time hanging high in the 9 heavens, I exist alone. What is a demon? Just like me, I am so proud that even the heavens cannot tolerate my heart. This was the second move of the fiendish saber inheritance, using the state of water droplets to break the sky. This drop of water was so tiny that if one did not look carefully, they would not even notice it. But once one discovered it, they would never be able to forget it. It was so ordinary, yet so special. It was a demon. It's a drop of water. He flicked a drop of water. What is he trying to do? It's clearly just a drop of water, so why do I feel like I'm shivering and my legs aren't listening to me? Damn it, what's going on? Damn it, what the hell happened? Initially, when he saw this drop of water, he didn't think much of it. But soon, he found himself unable to shift his gaze away from it, and his legs wouldn't listen to him. How strange and bewitching. Qin Yan Shengren was somewhat dumbfounded. This raindrop that Xiao Chen flicked out completely surpassed his common sense. Although Xiao Chen was not a sovereign emperor, his knowledge was limited. He had never heard of the fiendish saber's name or seen such a martial technique. He knew that this raindrop was extraordinary, but he couldn't think of a way to deal with it. Not just for a moment, but with his experience, even if he racked his brains, he still wouldn't be able to think of a way to deal with it. If they had the advantage of the terrain, it would have been impossible for them to suppress Xiao Chen before by consuming the foundation that the sect's disciples had been accumulating for thousands of years. I don't believe that a mere drop of water can overturn the heavens. Qin Yan Shengren shouted coldly. Then, he waved his hand at the 3 incense sticks in the incense burner and wiped them gently. The little accumulations that the sect had accumulated were immediately drained. Using the sect's accumulations, Xiao Chen activated the sect protecting formation. Instantly, sword lights covered the main peak of Heavenly Cloud Mountain as the sect's formation activated. Then, the light surged, and the nearby mountains and rivers seemed to come to life as if a long sword had come to life. In an instant, thousands of mountains became one. Is it useful? Xiao Chen's face was expressionless and cold, without the slightest hint of emotion. That drop of rain appeared in the eyes of the Azure Smoke sect disciples. It got closer and closer, silently piercing through the tall mountains and breaking through layers of sword veils, heading for a lake in the middle of the sect. He watched as the droplet of rain pierced through the mountain and tore through the sword veil, but nothing happened. Seeing this scene, Qin Yan Shengren could not help but laugh. You are just bluffing. You nearly, drip. Before Qin Yan Shengren could finish speaking, that droplet of rain landed on the lake. With a loud boom, the entire blessed land, not just the Azure Smoke sect's 1,000-layered mountain gate, exploded with a loud bang. No! Qin Yan Shengren showed a horrified expression as he screamed at the top of his lungs. The foundations of the Azure Smoke sect, which had been around for thousands of years, vanished before his eyes, completely destroyed. After that, the wind blew continuously. Layers of seawater exploded, and spirit springs spewed out everywhere. 7 colored lights scattered like fireworks. That was the top-grade spirit vein that sustained the blessed enclave. It had also been destroyed. Everything that he could see had been destroyed. However, he could only watch helplessly as the saber intent that erupted from that droplet of rain brought a calamity of destruction. One droplet of rain could destroy the sky. If the droplet of rain in that painting truly appeared, it might be able to sweep through the entire ink sea and destroy everything. Such a killing move already surpassed the norm of the mortal world. It could only be described as demonic. Xiao Chen stood upright with his hands behind his back as he slowly approached. With every step he took, the dilapidated mountains and rivers recovered. It was like time flowed in reverse. By the time Shao Chen arrived before Qin Yan Shengren, the entire blessed land had recovered to its original state. You, how ruthless. Even if I was in the wrong, you could have just killed me alone. However, what crime did the tens of thousands of my Azure Smoke sect disciples commit? To think that you slaughtered them all. You destroyed the foundation of my sect for thousands of years. Qin Yan Shengren felt extreme grief, looking haggard. The killing intent that erupted from that droplet of rain landed on him. That inferior-grade soul tool incense burner had already shattered. Qin Yan Shengren looked haggard, in an extremely sorry state. Shao Chen said calmly, I did not kill them. Old ancestor. Many figures descended from the sky with confused expressions, clearly at a loss as to what to do. In fact, they did not even know what was happening. Shao Chen purposely controlled that droplet of rain. Most of the saber intent landed on the Azure Smoke sect's formations and Qin Yan Shengren. The moment the saber intent erupted, the others got knocked back. When they landed, they saw this scene. These people did not even know that their sects were already destroyed and that the entire blessed land was gone, as everything had happened too quickly. You all, Qin Yan Shengren looked over. These sect disciples all had white hair and faint wrinkles on their faces. They looked like they had aged many years. Qin Yan Shengren could not continue. Previously, he only cared about defeating Shao Chen, squandering the sect's accumulations and overdrawing on the vitality of these sect disciples. Otherwise, given his foundation in the Ink Sea, even if he condensed a divine vein, he would not be able to gain any advantage against Shao Chen. He would not be able to gain any advantage against Shao Chen. He would reveal an opening with one strike, not to mention suppressing Shao Chen. Old ancestor, are you all right? The sect disciples did not understand the reason behind this. Instead, they started worrying about Qin Yan Shengren's injuries. Only Luo Yun and the other sovereign personages knew what was going on. However, they did not know what to say. They glanced at Shao Chen, who was watching coldly from the side. Their hearts filled with fear and nervousness. Clang! Just as the sect disciples were worrying about Qin Yan Shengren's injuries, they suddenly heard a melodious saber hum. A saber light flashed, looking like a short-lived, piercing and dazzling. What are you trying to do? If you dare to injure old ancestor, we will fight you to the death. After Qin Yan Shengren became a sovereign emperor, he was like a god to the Azure Smoke sect disciples. This was especially so in the past 2 years, when he led the Azure Smoke sect to dominate a region. All the sect disciples worshipped him, holding him in high esteem. Seeing Shao Chen draw his saber, the group of sect disciples all panicked, blocking Qin Yan Shengren. Move aside. Qin Yan Shengren knew Shao Chen's strength. Before Shao Chen, these people were like paper, not threatening at all. We are not leaving. I told you to move aside. Qin Yan Shengren shouted angrily, shaking off all the disciples. Immediately, they were tossed out like sandbags. Holding the tyrant saber, Shao Chen approached step by step. When he arrived before Qin Yan Shengren, he swung his saber. Luo Yun and the other sect masters immediately felt their hearts in their throats, feeling immense pressure. Senior, if you have any requests, just state them. Our Azure Smoke sect will definitely do as you say. Is it because of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion? We can hand over all the benefits we gained in the past 2 years. You just need to say the word, and we can spare Marshal Uncle's life. In the end, Luo Yun could not bear to do this. He mustered up his courage and spoke in a trembling voice. This major character, who dominated a region and swept through the Ink Sea, now trembled in fear, filled with helplessness. Shao Chen ignored Luo Yun. He only looked at Qin Yan Shengren and said, "It is not easy to become a sovereign emperor in the Ink Sea. This is your opportunity. However, you should not be afraid. So what if you are from the Ink Sea? You managed to become a sovereign emperor in this insignificant Ink Sea. So what if you go to the Central Great Realm? The path of a cultivator should be fearless. Even if you suffer all sorts of hardships, it is fine as long as you keep moving forward." However, you remain stubborn, only wanting to dominate this ink sea, suppressing the other sects and squeezing out the resources of the entire ink sea. Heavenly Alliance's Shao Chen, today, I will chop off one of your arms as punishment for bullying the Nine Cauldron Pavilion. Behave yourself in the future. As the saber light descended, Shao Chen sheathed his saber. Qing Yan Shengren cried out miserably as his right arm was chopped off. Remnant saber intent lingered in the wound. This saber intent would remain for a long time. Even a sovereign emperor would not be able to recover from it. Shao Chen did not kill Qing Yan Shengren because he wanted to maintain the balance in the ink sea. He was also doing this out of consideration for the Azure Smoke sect disciples. If Qing Yan Shengren died, the sects that he suppressed for the past 2 years would definitely kill all these disciples, not leaving a single one alive to vent their hatred. The more important reason was to maintain the balance, to give the various factions of the Ink Sea time to catch a breather. Even if a sovereign emperor lost an arm, he would still be much stronger than a regular false emperor. However, he would still be incomparable to when he was at his peak. Furthermore, with the destruction of the Azure Smoke sect, the Azure Smoke sect could only rest and recuperate for a long time. In the future, when the Azure Smoke sect rose up, it would fear the Nine Cauldron Pavilion and not dare to bargain. Only then would the Azure Smoke sect be in line with the Heavenly Alliance's interests. Only then would the mission come to a perfect conclusion. Whoosh! Shao Chen's figure flashed. Then, he turned into a flash of purple light and vanished. Boom! When Shao Chen left, the aura around him scattered. The entire blessed land shattered like a painting, returning to its original state. The sect is gone. This scene stupefied those disciples, all of them gaping and at a loss for what to do. However, Sect Master Luo Yun and the group of Elder Wang knew about this long ago. The moment they were sent flying, the entire mountain gate, no, the entire blessed enclave was gone. When the aura was gone, everything turned to dust. That feeling of helplessness made one sad, but one could not do anything about it. If possible, one might as well live in the painting, living in the aura that Shao Chen gathered. At the very least, the sect still existed. Even if one knew that it was fake, it was better than being in rubble. This made one feel despair and heartache. For the past few years, I monopolized the ink sea. I was really living in a dream. After I woke up from this dream, I realized that this ink sea was never my ink sea. Luo Yun smiled bitterly and sighed softly, appearing haggard. Chapter 2186. Outside Heavenly Cloud Mountain in the Ink Sea, a group of Azure Smoke Pavilion disciples looked at the ruined blessed land. There was another figure who was also observing silently. However, even if Shao Chen were here, he would find it hard to detect this figure, what more these people. The mysterious person looked around and fixed his gaze on Qing Yan Shengren's severed arm. Shao Chen had left some saber intent there. It would be very difficult to disperse the saber intent that contained Shao Chen's divine seal Dao domain, especially when Shao Chen had left it behind. Qing Yan Shengren would have to find someone much stronger than Shao Chen to disperse this saber intent. Otherwise, even a sovereign emperor would not be able to recover his arm. You did it beautifully. The mysterious person slowly withdrew his gaze, no longer paying attention. To the Heavenly Alliance, killing Qing Yan Shengren or not did not matter. The most important thing was to maintain the Nine Cauldron Pavilion's maximum benefits. If Qing Yan Shengren was killed, the Ink Sea would definitely fall into chaos. It might even trigger a chaotic battle between the various factions, resulting in a drastic change in the situation. The Nine Cauldron Pavilion was only a merchant association. It did not want to see such a scene. It still needed a stable Ink Sea without a strong ruler. After chopping off Qing Yan Shengren's arm, Qing Yan Shengren's strength decreased significantly. While he still deterred the other factions, it would be extremely difficult for him to regain his previous dominance. After learning this lesson, the Nine Cauldron Pavilion would fear him and not dare to do anything to the Nine Cauldron Pavilion. As for Qing Yan Shengren, it did not matter. A sovereign emperor who advanced in the Ink Sea was not sufficient. Actually, Xiao Chen's evaluation of Qing Yan Shengren was already very fair. The true experts of the Central Great Realm all felt arrogant toward the outer regions in their hearts. It looks like he really obtained the fiendish saber inheritance. I have to remember this. As for the rest, there should be nothing else. The mysterious person muttered to himself before quickly leaving, vanishing from this place. Just like how no one knew when he arrived, he left without leaving any traces, as if he had never existed. As for Xiao Chen, he had already completed his mission when he chopped off Qing Yan Shengren's arm. He could go to Red Cloud Island to report or ignore everything and directly return to the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters. However, Xiao Chen was thinking about another problem. Could he take this opportunity to go to the Blue Dragon's homeland? But on second thought, he chose to give up. When he was in the sky beyond heaven, he felt like someone was watching him. After coming out, he still felt uncomfortable. It was best to be as cautious as possible. In the future, it wouldn't be too late to go when he could accept missions alone. Anyway, if there were people in the dark, he wouldn't have to worry about his life. After heading to the Starry Sky Dao platform, Xiao Chen returned directly to the Heavenly Alliance's headquarters. As soon as he set foot on Sky Beyond Heaven, the deacon who gave him the mission was already waiting for him. Xiao Chen cupped his hands and said, "Deacon Mu." Deacon Mu nodded slightly. The headquarters gave you a 5-star evaluation. You got full marks for both the time you took to complete the mission and the results. Congratulations on completing the mission. You've been awarded 1,000 merit points. As he spoke, he took out his Heavenly Alliance medallion and stuck it to Xiao Chen's medallion. Then, Xiao Chen noticed that the number 1,000 had appeared on the back of his token under the 2 plum blossom petals. The number was well embedded in the vast white snow. If one did not look carefully, it would be hard to notice. You can exchange the merit points for resources. However, after you exchange them, the corresponding merit points will vanish. Deacon Mu gave Xiao Chen a simple explanation before turning to leave, not lingering. However, before he left, he gave Xiao Chen a few more glances, like he wanted to remember him. As Xiao Chen toyed with the Heavenly Alliance medallion, he thought to himself, to think that there is no reward for completing the mission. Is the merit the reward? However, if I exchange the merit points, I will have to wait to raise the rank of my plum blossom petals. While it looks like I am obtaining merit points for completing the mission, if I exchange them for resources frequently, the day I raise my plum blossom petals will be far away. The Heavenly Alliance must have done this on purpose. After returning to his residence, Xiao Chen greeted Bao Er. Then, he entered the medicinal spring room, removed his clothes, and soaked himself in. The medicinal spring had a healing effect. When he fought with Qing Yan Shengren, he had suffered some injuries from sword qi. This soaking could relieve his fatigue, heal his injuries, and eliminate hidden injuries. It was indeed pretty good. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and fell asleep. When he woke up, Bao Er was already waiting for him. She helped Xiao Chen put on his clothes. Big brother Xiao, you completed this mission really quickly. You completed it in less than 3 days. After helping Xiao Chen put on his clothes, Bao Er smiled softly and said, "Many of the deacons are praising you. If they were all as efficient as you, there would not be a lack of manpower." Xiao Chen did not deny it. After chatting with Bao Er for a while, he entered the cultivation room and entered closed-door cultivation. Cultivating at the foot of the Heavenly Alliance's divine mountain was much faster than cultivating outside. He could clearly feel the divine energy in his body rejoicing. Xiao Chen wondered how this divine mountain was forged for it to have such miraculous effects. As the 10,000 dragons art circulated, many different dragon images appeared in his divine energy sea. After 100 dragon images appeared, they stopped. Xiao Chen was still far from forming the 10,000 dragons picture and reaching the first step of the 10,000 dragons art. However, Xiao Chen still had a long time ahead of him. With this divine mountain to rely on, he could save a lot of time. Xiao Chen's days of quiet cultivation did not last long. After 3 days, he received missions. Xiao Chen, who was only a two-petal plum blossom cultivator, did not have any free time. Now, he finally understood what Bauer meant by resting more. Otherwise, he would not have any time to rest. Xiaochen did not say anything unnecessary. He just took the missions and left, completing them at the fastest speed possible. His efficiency was flabbergasting. In a short year, Xiaochen became famous in the Heavenly Alliance. Everyone knew about this white-clad bladesman. This was because Xiaochen needed only 1 year to become a three-petal flower. Xiaochen did not use any of the contribution points for completing the missions. He saved them all up. When he met the requirements, he immediately chose to raise his cultivation. To Xiaochen, the Heavenly Alliance's divine mountain was sufficient for his needs. Little brother Xiaochen, are you sure that you are in such a rush to raise your cultivation? Administrator Mu, who was already very familiar with Xiaochen, said out of goodwill, you can exchange these contribution points for many resources. If you choose to raise your cultivation, you will lose all of them. Xiaochen replied calmly, I know. However, I have my own arrangements. The higher one's cultivation, the more contribution points one can obtain for completing missions. The highest reward for a two-petal flower is only 1,000 contribution points. The lowest reward for a three-petal flower is 10,000 contribution points. This will depend on how it is calculated. There was one more thing that Xiaochen did not say. If a three-petal flower could choose its own missions, it would not be as passive as before. Administrator Mu smiled and said, since you have made your choice, I will not say anything more. Xiaochen returned the Heavenly Alliance medallion to Xiaochen. Then, another of the 8 plum blossoms lit up on the snowy scene on the back, making a total of 3. The numbers under the plum blossoms all turned to 0. Xiaochen would stand on a new starting point. This is for you. Xiaochen found this somewhat strange. Then, he received a jade bottle from Administrator Mu. When he opened it, he saw that it contained 5 tons of origin liquid. This was a large sum. Even after selling the 10,000-year-old herb kings, Xiaochen had only obtained 50 tons of origin liquid. This is, Xiaochen asked, feeling confused. Administrator Mu explained, this is the Heavenly Alliance's reward for you. All the lords saw your contributions for themselves in the past year. Originally, with the contribution points you obtained, it would have been a large reward. You could have even exchanged for an inferior grade soul tool. However, you did not exchange for it, which was equivalent to doing nothing. The lords felt that they could not let you down. They did not know what you needed, so they gave you 5 tons of origin liquid. When Xiaochen thought about it, he felt that this was true. He had worked hard in the past year. Normally, he did not feel much. This was because he felt that being in the Heavenly Alliance was the greatest reward. He had a divine mountain to cultivate on, a demon blood vulture to nurture, and combat experience to temper himself as a sovereign emperor. Honestly speaking, although these days were dull and tiring, they suited Xiaochen. Although Xiaochen had not opened a divine vein in the past year, his 10,000 dragons art progressed rapidly. He was only one step away from condensing the 10,000 dragons picture. Many thanks. Xiaochen thanked Administrator Mu softly as he put away the jade bottle. Origin liquid was good stuff. He would not reject something that came to him for free. Administrator Mu smiled faintly and called out to Xiaochen, who was about to turn around. Don't be in a rush to leave. The Alliance Chief wants to see you. The Heavenly Alliance's Alliance Chief was one of the leaders of the 5 super factions of the Righteous Tao. He was one of the people who stood at the peak of the martial epoch. Although Xiaochen was in the Heavenly Alliance, it was impossible for him to request an audience with the Heavenly Alliance Chief. There was too much of a difference in their levels. Why are you looking for me? Xiaochen asked in a deep voice. His expression remained calm, not showing much fluctuation. Administrator Mu waved his hand and said, how could I know about such things? However, he is not meeting me alone this time. Grim Reaper Lin Feng is going as well. Chapter 2187. There was a divine mountain in heaven beyond heaven. At the summit of the Divine Mountain was a residence. Aside from the Heavenly Alliance's Alliance Chief, no one else was qualified to reside at the summit of this Divine Mountain. Under Administrator Mu's lead, Xiaoqin headed for the Divine Mountain summit. As Xiaoqin advanced, he felt the mysteriousness of the Divine Mountain. The foot of the mountain could not compare to the middle of the mountain. The density of the divine nature was like night and day. No wonder people wanted to climb higher. They needed to live high, be strong, and possess a high status. They needed to be aloof, looking down from above, enjoying others looking up to them. There was no need to describe the mysteriousness of the Alliance Chief's residence. With just one glance, Xiaoqin felt somewhat helpless. Every brick and tile was made of alloy and decorated with spirit herbs and celestial flowers. There was a sense of elegance in the atmosphere. This was the so-called paradise. Little brother Xiaoqin, please enter. I'm not qualified to enter, Administrator Mu said with some envy. One could see the entire Heavenly Alliance great realm from the summit of this divine mountain. It was not easy to enter the residence and meet the Alliance Chief. Xiaoqin nodded and entered the residence with his head held high. There was no one in the hall to guide him, but there was only one path. He just had to keep walking forward. Pawns lined both sides of the path. There were elegant and ancient murals on the walls. Xiaoqin did not know which epoch they were in. As he walked, he pushed open a door. Then, Xiaoqin figured that he should be in the main hall. A person stood in the hall. It was Grim Reaper Lin Feng, who had arrived earlier. When he saw Xiaoqin, he nodded slightly in greeting. Xiaoqin nodded back in greeting. He felt admiration for this Grim Reaper Lin Feng. Xiaoqin heard that Lin Feng was once a sovereign emperor in the abyssal underworld. However, he betrayed the abyssal underworld and destroyed his demonic Dao cultivation technique. Lin Feng's cultivation returned to its starting point and started over. Then, he rose up again, comprehending the Death Great Dao and the Death Dao domain. He surpassed his previous peak and was extremely incredible. Rumor had it that Lin Feng's master betrayed him, offering his lover with an extreme mean body to the underworld God Hall's Vice Hall master. This person exuded an extremely heavy death qi. He did not befriend others and kept a low profile. He did not have much of a presence in the Heavenly Alliance. However, his strength made it so that no one could ignore his existence. All of the information about him were just rumors. Xiaoqin heard that he had directly become a disciple of Suiren Ji, the same Suiren Ji who had wanted to recruit Xiaoqin. How long have you been here? Xiaoqin walked over and asked softly. Lin Feng answered simply, an hour before you. Xiao. Just when Xiaoqin felt that Lin Feng wasn't that cold, a light flashed at the end of the hall. 9 figures appeared at the end of the path. They looked very close, but these 9 people seemed to be in another world. They were so close, yet so far away, their figures faintly discernible. 2 of them sat cross-legged, while the other 7 stood behind them. They had different expressions on their faces, as if they were shadows. Xiaoqin saw Mu Zifeng among the 7. These 7 should be the Heavenly Alliance's 7 core doyens. Needless to say, the 2 people who sat down were the Heavenly Alliance's Alliance Chief and Vice Alliance Chief. Greetings to the 2 Alliance Chiefs and the 7 Lords. Xiaoqin and Lin Feng bowed slightly, performing cupped fist salutes to show respect. These 9 people could be considered the Heavenly Alliance's core upper echelon. They held high positions, and their cultivations were among the strongest. Good. I have long heard that my Heavenly Alliance produced 2 outstanding talents of the new generation. Today, I finally get to see them, the seated black-clad old man said. This person should be the Heavenly Alliance's Alliance Chief, Hua Tianyang, one of the top experts of the current martial epoch. Mu Zifeng, Suiren Ji, are these 2 your disciples? Mu Zifeng replied softly, Xiaoqin is not my disciple. He is Peach Blossom's disciple. I can be considered his guide in the Heavenly Alliance. Peach Blossom, so, he is Peach Blossom's disciple. He still remembers how well the Heavenly Alliance treated him. Hua Tianyang said softly, help me prepare a gift tomorrow and send it to desolate Sea Peach Blossom City. Yes. After Mu Zifeng answered, Sui Renji smiled and said, Shao Chen is not Mu Zifeng's disciple. However, Lin Feng is indeed my disciple. I noticed him the moment he entered the Heavenly Alliance. Shao Chen and Lin Feng had no right to interfere when the powerhouses spoke. They could only let these people comment on them. Shao Chen only glanced at Sui Renji and saw his appearance clearly. Sui Renji had a cold and gloomy face. His eyes flickered with a wild light, giving the impression of a venomous snake lurking in the shadows. Shao Chen, Lin Feng, the two of you have been in my Heavenly Alliance for more than a year. Perhaps the two of you cannot feel it, but the Heavenly Alliance's secret guards protected you every time you went on a mission. The Dark Guards saw everything. This is sufficient to prove your loyalty to my Heavenly Alliance. Hua Tianyang got straight to the point, not bothering with pleasantries. This confirmed the feeling that someone was monitoring Shao Chen. In reality, the Heavenly Alliance's newcomers did not receive such treatment in the past. My Heavenly Alliance does not care about loyalty. We are very clear on how many spies there are in the vast Heavenly Alliance. However, it does not matter. As long as they can be used by my Heavenly Alliance, they can do whatever they want. Such boldness was indeed shocking. However, given the Heavenly Alliance's uniqueness, this was indeed the case. It is fine as long as you are used by me. As for other thoughts, I will just not let you come into contact with the core. Hua Tianyang continued, this time, I called the two of you here for a mission. I need the two of you to work together to complete it. This mission is tailor-made for the two of you. I can't find anyone more suitable than you. Shao Chen thought to himself, tailor-made for the two of us. That means that Lin Feng and I have something in common, which makes us suitable for the Alliance Chief's mission. What do we have in common? After thinking about it, the only thing the two of them had in common was the dragon race bloodline. However, Shao Chen was a flood dragon human, and his dragon race bloodline had mutated. As for his dragon race bloodline, to others, it should be a mutated mixed blood dragon bloodline. Mu Zifeng, come and speak to them, Hua Tianyang said softly. Mu Zifeng nodded and said, Shao Chen, Lin Feng, the Alliance Chief wishes to send the two of you to the Abyssal Underworld to retrieve a holy item that the Heavenly Alliance once lost in the Abyssal Underworld, the Snow God Whip's dart head. 4,000 years ago, 5 superpowers joined hands to attack the Netherworld world, intending to eradicate the Underworld God Hall in one fell swoop. During the Great Battle, the Heavenly Alliance's Snow God Whip was destroyed, and the dart head was lost. The Heavenly Alliance has always wanted to find it. Unfortunately, it is too difficult for the people of the righteous Tao to enter the Abyssal Underworld. If you're too strong, you'll be discovered before you even enter the Netherworld. If you're too weak, you won't be able to complete the mission. As long as the two of you complete this mission, you will be promoted to become a 4-petal member. The Alliance leader will also personally agree to one of your requests. Hua Tianyang sighed and said, I am ashamed to say this. This sacred item was lost in my hands, but I am unable to retrieve it myself. Sui Renji hurriedly said, Alliance Master, don't feel guilty. If not for this battle back then, showing the glory of our Heavenly Alliance to the world, showing our Heavenly Alliance's strength, our Heavenly Alliance would not have become a superpower. Furthermore, you entered the Abyssal Underworld 9 times and fought with the Underworld Monarch several times, putting yourself in danger. You have already done enough. The other core doyens quickly consoled Hua Tianyang, not wanting him to feel too guilty. I know about that great battle. It is known as the final blood battle in the Abyssal Underworld. The 9 layers of the Abyssal Underworld suffered heavy casualties. If not for the Xuewu dynasty's help, the Underworld God Hall might have been destroyed. If I guessed right, this dart head should be in the final blood battlefield remnant. That place is considered a forbidden land in the Abyssal Underworld, Lin Feng replied softly. Lin Feng replied softly. He was rather clear about this battle. Before Lin Feng betrayed the underworld god Hall, the underworld god Hall had been proclaiming how despicable the people of the central Great Realm were. Lin Feng once thought of killing his way back to the Great Thousand Realms one day, establishing supreme beneficence for the underworld god Hall, helping the flood dragon humans reclaim the divine dragon empire. However, that was all in the past. It was no longer important. That's right. If there are no surprises, this dart head should still be in the final blood battlefield. The two of you possess the dragon race bloodline. Lin Feng does not even need to disguise himself to return to the abyssal underworld without being discovered. As for Xiao Chen, the demonic Dao cultivation technique that you cultivate can hide your identity very well. Hua Tianyang changed the topic as he looked at Xiao Chen and smiled gently. When Xiao Chen heard that, his heart trembled. He revealed a horrified expression, feeling somewhat at a loss. Originally, Xiao Chen thought that the other party would say that he had a mixed-blood dragon bloodline. That way, he would not be discovered. Who could have imagined that Hua Tianyang would expose his secret of cultivating a demonic Dao cultivation technique, leaving him at a loss? Hua Tianyang smiled and said, "There is no need to be nervous. Since ancient times, there have been people of the righteous Dao who cultivate demonic Dao cultivation techniques. All the talented people would study demonic Dao cultivation techniques, just like how there are people of the demonic Dao who cultivate righteous Dao cultivation techniques. My Heavenly Alliance's senior elder Sui Ren Ji cultivates a demonic Dao cultivation technique. However, it is still the same. As a core doyen of my Heavenly Alliance, no one in the righteous Dao dares to say anything. Don't think of the people of the righteous Dao as too pedantic. Some things are only said on the surface. In the end, it is still a conflict of interest. If you are strong enough, who will dare to control you? Of course, if you are not strong enough and do not have a backer, the result will be different." As Hua Tianyang spoke, Sui Ren Ji smiled sinisterly at Xiao Chen. His smile seemed profound and mysterious. Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. I hid it well enough. Even a faux god would not easily discover it. It must be Sui Ren Ji who exposed me. While Hua Tianyang's words sounded like consolation, they were actually threats. You have my Heavenly Alliance's protection. Just like Sui Ren Ji, no one will dare to say anything. If you leave the Heavenly Alliance and someone kills you as a demon, you will not be able to redress your grievances. However, this is not entirely a bad thing. If you are completely flawless, with all your strengths, Hua Tianyang might not dare to trust you. However, once he discovers your secret, he will have something to use against you. On the contrary, he will trust you even more. Xiao Chen calmed down and said, Alliance Chief is right. Xiao Chen has experienced it for himself. Hua Tianyang nodded slightly and said, let's do it this way, then. The two of you go and make preparations first. We can depart at any time. The moment Xiao Chen turned around, his expression turned somewhat sullen. Without saying a word, he quickly left. The Heavenly Alliance is not a good place to stay. No wonder the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor chose to leave back then. As Mu Zifeng watched Xiao Chen leave, he sighed to himself. The Alliance Chief had decided on this. He could not inform Xiao Chen in advance. Sui Ren Ji, you did well this time. You managed to discover Xiao Chen's weakness. Otherwise, given how cautious he is and how he does things, the hidden guards who were observing him would not have discovered any weakness, Hua Tianyang praised softly. Only when there was a weakness would it be easier to control Sui Ren Ji. Only then would Sui Ren Ji feel assured to do some things. Otherwise, Hua Tianyang would not be able to leave this matter to Xiao Chen. Sui Ren Ji smiled and said, finding the holy relic is Alliance Chief's greatest wish. Naturally, Sui Ren Ji will do his best. Chapter 2188. When Xiao Chen returned to his residence, he had already calmed down. He had not expected his secret to be exposed. At that time, Xiao Chen felt somewhat stunned. However, after thinking about it, he realized that it might not be a bad thing. Cultivating a demonic Dao cultivation technique had always been a knot in Xiao Chen's heart. Now that it was exposed, he felt much more relaxed. From now on, he would no longer have this knot in his heart. Hua Tianyang was right. The battle between the righteous factions and demonic factions, eliminating demons and protecting the Tao, was ultimately a battle of interests. How could the people of the righteous Tao be so pedantic? How could a faux god have such low standards? Since ancient times, many people had cultivated demonic Tao cultivation techniques. However, most of them did not end up well. On the surface, everyone showed fear. However, who could guarantee that they did not secretly learn or look at demonic Tao cultivation techniques? Even from the perspective of knowing oneself and one's enemy, this was not a bad thing. However, Hua Tianyang's last sentence was even more right. If one was strong enough, no matter what cultivation technique one cultivated, others would not dare to say anything about it. Say anything? If they said anything more, they would kill them. However, if one was not strong enough and did not have any backing, they would be killed if they dared to cultivate it. Speaking of which, killing a demon would increase Xiao Chen's reputation significantly. He would give others a handle to use against him and would not be able to redress his grievances. Big Brother Xiao, your expression seems somewhat off. Did something bad happen when you met the Alliance Chief? Bauer asked timidly when she saw that Xiao Chen had not said anything after he returned. Her expression also looked somewhat frightening. Xiao Chen took a sip of tea and replied calmly, "It's fine. The Alliance Chief gave me a heavy responsibility. It is hard to say whether I will survive or not." "Oh," Bauer said, not asking anything more. She just obediently filled Xiao Chen's teacup. As the atmosphere turned somewhat heavy, Mu Zifeng went directly to Xiao Chen's residence. Then, he waved his hand to dismiss Bauer. "Big Brother Mu." Xiao Chen stood up. Mu Zifeng gave Xiao Chen a deep look. Then, he said, "You should have told me in advance that you cultivated a demonic Tao cultivation technique. Otherwise, if Suiren Ji found out about it, I would not have been forced into such a passive state." Xiao Chen showed a doubtful expression as he said, "Big Brother Mu will be implicated as well." "Of course. Did you think the Alliance Master didn't have a motive for asking if you were one of my disciples?" Mu Zifeng said softly, "Alliance Chief Hua is injured and will retire in a few years. At that time, one of the 7 of us will have to choose the position of Alliance Chief." Suddenly, Xiao Chen felt somewhat tired. He felt very uncomfortable in the Heavenly Alliance. It was much worse than when he was in the Heaven Dragon Palace. There were schemes everywhere, and there were hidden guards at all times. It made people feel a little depressed for no reason. Now, Xiao Chen increasingly understood why the Peach Blossom Sovereign Emperor left back then. Mu Zifeng was somewhat different from what Xiao Chen had imagined. However, when he thought about it, it made sense. For him to climb to the position of a core doyen, how could he be someone with few desires? "My apologies for implicating Lord Mu. I am truly sorry." Xiao Chen replied calmly. His expression was calm, but he did not show much sincerity in his apology. Mu Zifeng sensed the distance in Xiao Chen's words. He sighed in his heart and stopped dwelling on this problem. "Let's drop this matter. Let's talk about the holy relic. If possible, you have to obtain the dart head yourself. You have to get the most credit." Xiao Chen frowned slightly, feeling displeased in his heart. Mu Zifeng was purposely trying to sow discord between him and Lin Feng. Before the mission even started, he was already scheming. Mu Zifeng observed Xiao Chen's expression and knew what he was thinking. He said seriously, "You might not know this, but the Heavenly Alliance spent a lot of time and resources on this holy relic. For the sake of retrieving the holy relic, Hua Tianyang nearly lost his life. Left with no choice, he came up with this plan. This is the best opportunity. The Heavenly Alliance has been making preparations since the start of this batch of newcomers. After a few rounds of secret screening, we finally decided on you and Lin Feng. Your appearance is simply a heaven-sent opportunity." When Xiao Chen heard that, his heart sank. Does that mean that Mu Zifeng thought of this mission the first time he saw me? Mu Zifeng's shrewdness was somewhat scary. You can say that the core doyen behind whoever retrieves the holy relic will be the next Heavenly Alliance's alliance chief, Mu Zifeng said softly to Xiao Chen. Seeing that Xiao Chen remained silent, Mu Zifeng said indifferently, I can promise you that if I become the alliance chief, the position of Dragon Emperor will be yours. There are no longer any heroes in this world. It is impossible for you to obtain the position of Dragon Emperor by relying on so-called dreams and emotions. I can tell you this. The forces involved in the position of Dragon Emperor are many times greater than you can imagine. You absolutely cannot become the Dragon Emperor by yourself. You need my support, the support of the Heavenly Alliance's alliance chief. Mu Zifeng did not bother with pleasantries or threatening Xiao Chen. He only explained all the benefits to Xiao Chen. Seeing Xiao Chen reveal a contemplative expression, Mu Zifeng smiled faintly and said, You are very similar to Peach Blossom. You only want to pursue the martial Tao, not caring about the karma of the mundane world. However, you and I are in the mundane world, so we cannot avoid it. The heavenly realm shattered, and the martial epoch no longer has a true god. To think that you talk about the dream of pursuing the peak of the martial Tao. In my opinion, this is rather comical. Of course, I personally admire these people, including you and Peach Blossom. This could be considered the age of decline. True gods of the martial Tao no longer existed. There was no peak, no goal. Several generations of faux gods were already lost. This was the worst age. Mu Zifeng's words represented the thoughts of most sovereign emperors and faux gods. Xiao Chen put down his teacup and said, Let's not talk about this first. Lord Mu, let's talk about the mission. Mu Zifeng smiled faintly and said, It is fine if you want to run away. I will not force you. I already said it. Being born in the mundane world, the karma of the mundane world cannot be avoided. You will make your own choice when the time comes. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. He knew what Mu Zifeng meant. At this moment, Sui Renji was probably saying the same thing as Lin Feng. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's talk about the mission. This is a replica of the Snow God whip. You can take a look. Mu Zifeng took out a long whip that looked like a plum blossom. There was a total of 9 segments, each one looking like a plum blossom branch. In reality, it was made of plum blossoms, supplemented by divine materials and transcendent alloys. When Xiao Chen touched it, he could feel a flourishing life force amid its coldness. It contained an extremely strong life Tao. At the top of the 9-segment plum blossom whip was a dart head flickering with 7-colored light. It looked like the tip of a spear, but it was sharper and more exquisite. This is... Xiao Chen found it somewhat familiar, but he could not recall what it was. Mu Zifeng smiled and said, You must be very familiar with it. Take out your medallion and take a look. Xiao Chen took out the Heavenly Alliance medallion and immediately understood. The front of the Heavenly Alliance medallion had divine characters made of 7 pieces of metal. This is a 7-color stone. When the Heavenly Alliance was first established, the 7 merchant associations collected all the supreme treasures in the world and refined them into a fantasy divine stone. If not for fear of getting into trouble because of its value, the Heavenly Alliance's Grandmaster-level martial sages could have forged it into a transcendent grade soul tool. Hence, they could only forge it into a dart head, which resulted in the peak superior grade soul tool, the Snow God Whip. Although the other parts of the so-called Snow God Whip are precious, they are not worth mentioning compared to this 7-color stone. Xiao Chen toyed with the Snow God Whip in his hand. Then, he gently swung it, and snowflakes immediately drifted down. The scarlet plum blossom whip in his hand looked exceptionally beautiful against the backdrop of the wind and snow. It had its own grace, swaying gracefully in the snow. Since this dart head is so miraculous, aren't you afraid that Lin Feng and I will take it and flee? Mu Zifeng smiled and said, Don't even think about it. Without a cultivation technique to complement it, you cannot bring out its true might. Furthermore, given the 2 of your smart, you will not do something so foolish, trying to control a treasure that is not of your own strength. Mu Zifeng was right. Without sufficient strength, controlling such a treasure would only bring disaster upon oneself. The Heavenly Alliance did not have to worry. Furthermore, the two of them had weaknesses. They did not dare to fall out with the Heavenly Alliance. No wonder Hua Tianyang said that this mission was tailor-made for the two of them. To the Heavenly Alliance, the two of them were the best candidates. There was nothing more suitable. After chatting for a while, Mu Zifeng stood up and said, "Let's not talk about the mission anymore. This Snow God Whip replica is a peak Dao tool, no weaker than some inferior grade soul tools. I'll give it to you. There's also this. Take it as well." Xiao Qin received a seed and asked, finding it strange, "What is this?" "This is a rank 9 peony seed, the devastatingly beautiful peony, the king of flowers. The instant it blooms, life force fills the air. It can suppress the death Dao domain for 1 hour. Even if you do not need it, you can keep it to protect yourself. Of course. I hope that you will take the initiative to use it. After all, who knows what Swearen Ji prepared for him?" Mu Zifeng smiled meaningfully. Then, he patted Xiao Chen's shoulder and turned to leave. Xiao Chen set the seed aside. Then, he picked up the teacup and fiddled with it, thinking about everything Mu Zifeng said. On the other side, as Mu Zifeng expected, Swearen Ji also gave instructions to Lin Feng. "Do you understand everything that I told you?" Swearen Ji's deep voice sounded somewhat hoarse. Lin Feng nodded silently, not saying anything more. Suddenly, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, and he took 2 steps back. Horror flashed in his eyes. A ghostly figure appeared and circled Swearen Ji, making him look even more sinister and cold. Swearen Ji smiled sinisterly. Then, he flicked his finger, and a ghostly figure appeared. It turned out to be a strand of Ho Soul. Whoosh! The Ho Soul in Swearen Ji's hand turned into an arrow flickering with a green light. It was a bona fide ghost Ho arrow, radiating a frightening chill. Lin Feng could not suppress the horror in his heart, so he had to take another step back. Swearen Ji smiled faintly and said, "Are you afraid? I am not here to kill you. This dragon-killing arrow is to send that fellow to heaven. After you obtain the holy relic, kill him for me." This little bastard actually dared to reject my invitation back then. He must be tired of living. Now, he even dares to be so close to Mu Zifeng. How reckless! Lin Feng grabbed the dragon-killing arrow flying at him. He felt his soul tremble. This was the innate fear of the dragon race bloodline toward the Ho. However, Lin Feng was Lin Feng, after all. After holding the arrow for a while, a ruthless look appeared in his eyes. Unexpectedly, he suppressed the might of the arrow. "Very good. I hope that you can bring back not only the holy relic but also Xiao Chen's head." Swearen Ji revealed a satisfied smile. He liked ruthless people like Lin Feng, who were ruthless to themselves and even more ruthless to their enemies. Chapter 2189. After sending off Mu Zifeng, Xiao Chen made preparations for his trip to the Abyssal Underworld and Lin Feng's meeting at the summit of the Abyssal Underworld 3 days later. The two of them nodded slightly and greeted each other. Even though they were both feeling a little strange, there was no trace of it on their faces. They were extremely calm. It didn't take long for Hua Tianyang and the 7 core Grand Elders to arrive. "It looks like you're almost done with your preparations. I won't be able to send you off on this trip. Ku Yun, help me send the two of them off." Unexpectedly, Hua Tianyang did not send Mu Zifeng or Swearen Ji. Instead, another core doyen, Ku Yun, did it. This Ku Yun was known as Master Ku Yun. Among the core doyens, he was in charge of the Heavenly Alliance's blacksmithing and blacksmithing matters. He never competed with others. "Follow me." Whoosh! A figure that seemed to have jumped from the other side of the world appeared before the two of them. It was Master Ku Yun. Xiao Chen and Lin Feng followed Master Ku Yun to the Heavenly Alliance's Dao platform. The Netherworld was located beneath the Central World. It was composed of 9 realms and had its own laws. It was equivalent to the dark side and shadow of the central world. The two were interdependent, and neither could destroy the other. Huh. Shao Chen, your alloy battle armor seems to have reached 2 stars. Master Ku Yun exclaimed in shock when he saw Shao Chen's gloves. Lin Feng, who was at the side, also looked over in surprise. The upgrade of alloy battle armor required an enormous amount of resources, and he was still stuck at a 1-star alloy battle armor. Shao Chen's expression did not change as he said calmly, I used all the resources in the faux god world on the alloy battle armor. When I returned to the Heavenly Alliance, I asked Lord Mu Zifeng to upgrade it. No wonder. Come, let's head to the central world first. It was just a small matter, so it was over after a brief mention. Through the Dao platform's teleportation, he arrived at the central world. Shao Chen looked at the familiar surroundings and felt slightly shocked. This place seemed to be the Desolate Sea. Desolate City was not far ahead. Is this barren city? Indeed. We should do our best to keep a low profile. The Desolate Sea is a good place to hide from others. Come, I'll send you to the abyssal underworld. Master Ku Yun used his own cultivation to carry Shao Chen and Lin Feng. Soon, they arrived at a deep chasm. Demonic energy gushed out from the pitch-black abyss. The surroundings were secluded, and there was no one in the wilderness. This was one of the more secretive passageways from the central world to the abyssal underworld. Very few people knew about it. This 10,000 demon abyss is too dangerous and leads directly to the 9th layer of the abyssal underworld. Very few people use it. You too should be careful, said Master Ku Yun as he looked at the bottomless abyss filled with unknown dangers. Shao Chen and Lin Feng exchanged glances. Then, they did not hesitate to jump down. The two of them were no strangers to the netherworld. Shao Chen had once carried out a mission in the Heaven Dragon Hall and killed Rakshasa Tian's clone with one saber strike. However, at that time, he had gone to the 1st layer of the netherworld. This time, he was going to the even more dangerous 9th layer of the netherworld. As for Lin Feng, he was originally a flood dragon human and had been born in the netherworld since he was young. Coming here was like returning home. Looking at the two of them entering the abyss, Ku Yun fell into deep thought before he shook his head and sighed. Soon, 2 figures descended from the sky. They were Suiren Ji and Mu Zifeng. Master Ku Yun did not feel surprised at the two's appearance. He just nodded slightly to them. Brother Mu, who do you think will bring back the holy relic in the end? Mu Zifeng replied indifferently, the abyssal underworld is very dangerous. Brother Suiren, you should be worried about whether they can return alive. As for finding the holy relic, they have failed for so many years. It would not be strange for them to fail again. Suiren Ji smiled and said, stop pretending. You and I both know that the chances of finding the holy relic this time are the highest. However, you are right. We still have to worry about whether Shao Chen can return or not. That is the most important thing. After all, he has not even opened a divine vein. Lin Feng was once a sovereign emperor expert and grasped the Death Dao domain. He should not have to worry about self-preservation. Mu Zifeng's expression changed slightly. He smiled and said, it looks like Brother Suiren thinks that Shao Chen will definitely fall in the abyssal underworld. Let's see who can return alive at that time. The two clashed with each other, their words containing needles. After exchanging a few words, the atmosphere turned exceptionally hostile. Master Ku Yun did not find this strange. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and said, the two of them have already arrived in the abyssal underworld. It is time to go. After saying that, Master Ku Yun left first, not lingering. Mu Zifeng and Suiren Ji both snorted coldly and left at the same time, not leaving any traces behind. At the bottom of the 10,000 demon abyss, Shao Chen and Lin Feng landed one after another. When they looked around, they saw a desolate scene. Tall shrubs grew on the ground, and dark clouds hung in the sky. A blood moon hung high in the dark clouds. After landing, Shao Chen sheathed his saber. His journey in the 10,000 demon abyss had not been smooth. There were many ferocious abyssal underworld creatures, especially vampire bats. There were so many of them that it was flabbergasting. If one was not careful, one would end up sucked dry. As Xiaochen sized up his surroundings, he saw a gushing river at the limits of his vision. There seemed to be the silhouette of a city further away. With a thought, the yin and yang divine energy sea in Xiaochen's time core flipped over. Now, the divine energy sea surging with demonic qi was revealed. Immediately, Xiaochen's aura changed drastically. Xiaochen's eyes turned pitch black, filled with a demonic nature. His entire body gave off an aura that could devour the world, inspiring fear. Xiaochen could feel the demonic qi divine energy filling his meridians. A violent and bloodthirsty emotion spread throughout his body. This was the first time he allowed the demonic qi divine energy to occupy his physical body without holding anything back, so he was not used to it. After calming down for a while, Xiaochen's mental state returned to normal. Now, he could deal with the demonic qi divine energy in his body, as well as the violent and bloodthirsty emotion. Lin Feng felt flabbergasted as he watched from the side. In the blink of an eye, it was like Xiaochen had vanished. A bona fide demonic Tao sovereign emperor stood beside Xiaochen, radiating a frightening aura from all over. The two of you are too big of a target. Let's split up for now. We will meet at the final blood battlefield half a month from now. Lin Feng suddenly spoke before Xiaochen could stabilize himself, startling him slightly. All right. After thinking about it, separating for now was not a bad idea. So, Xiaochen nodded in agreement. As Xiaochen watched Lin Feng leave, he guessed that Lin Feng might be meeting some people or doing some other things in the abyssal underworld. After all, Lin Feng had grown up here and became a sovereign emperor here. This was fine. After all, Xiaochen could not figure out Lin Feng's thoughts. Furthermore, Lin Feng's Death Dao domain was extremely difficult to deal with. Anyone would be tired of being on guard all the time. Xiaochen changed into black clothes and a conical bamboo hat. Then, he got the demon blood vulture to perch on his shoulder. His get-up was perfect. Xiaochen chose a different direction from Lin Feng, heading forward. The abyssal underworld had a total of 9 layers. The 9th layer was the most bustling. Aside from the Azura race, which controlled the 9th layer, the elite cultivators of the Rakshasa race and Yiksha race from the other layers gathered there. This was because the Underworld God Hall's main hall was in this 9th layer of the abyssal underworld. Aside from the abyssal underworld's races, there were also many human demonic Tao cultivators in this 9th layer of the abyssal underworld. Most of them were here on experiential training. The demonic Tao cultivators and the abyssal underworld cultivators cultivated very similar cultivation techniques. Hence, they frequently communicated with each other. Along the way, Xiaochen met with several demonic Tao cultivators. When the Azura race and the other abyssal underworld cultivators saw Xiaochen, they did not find him strange and did not give him a second look. There was no one in this place except for righteous Tao cultivators. Perhaps there were, but they disguised themselves better. The righteous Tao cultivators and the abyssal underworld's races could be considered mortal enemies. They had fought several times before, wanting to destroy the other side as soon as possible. Unlike Lin Feng, Xiaochen's understanding of the 9th layer of the abyssal underworld was limited to some information on paper. If Xiaochen wanted to reach the final blood battlefield, he needed to head to the nearest abyssal underworld city and obtain a map there. Otherwise, who knew how long it would take to find the final blood battlefield if he was blind? 4 hours later, Xiaochen arrived before the river at the limits of his vision. That was a scarlet river. The gushing river looked like the rough blood of a demonic beast, looking very uncomfortable. The gushing river was like the sea with horrifying waves. From time to time, layers of ghostly shadows would appear, causing people to tremble with fear. Xiaochen knew that this was the abyssal underworld's holy river. It held a high and sacred position in the hearts of the abyssal underworld's races. The holy river gushed all the way to the Azura Purgatory. The underworld god hall was above that Azura Purgatory. Even the abyssal underworld's races were not allowed to touch the holy river water. Only those with meritorious contributions or noble bloodlines could enjoy the baptism of the holy river. As for outsiders, that went without saying. Right now, Xiaoqin was a demonic Dao cultivator. He could only obediently wait for the underworld boat on the other side to cross the river. Several cultivators already gathered at the pier. There were many Rakshasa, Yaksha, Asura, and demonic Dao cultivators. Most of them were only star venerates or holy venerates. Even sovereign personages were rare. Xiaoqin spread out his aura slightly, attracting the attention of the crowd. This attracted the attention of the crowd. They kept their distance from him and looked at him with respect. Even the Asura cultivators, the masters of the 9th layer of the abyssal underworld, did not dare to show any disrespect or be impudent. In the abyssal underworld, the respect for the strong was exceptionally exaggerated. The underworld boat docked on the holy river. As long as Xiaoqin did not leave, no one dared to move. After Xiaoqin boarded, the cultivators behind him rushed to board the underworld boat. The surging river water surged. However, the underworld boat, which was not very large, moved against the current like it was on flat land. Xiaoqin stood at the bow of the boat and looked at the river. The river was vast like the sea, boundless. Blood mist and ghostly figures filled the air. Occasionally, he heard the cries of infants and the wails of malicious spirits. That should be a demon blood vulture on that senior's shoulder, right? That should be it. What a strong demon blood vulture. Its bloodline is already starting to revert. How enviable. It would be great if I had such a demonic pet. Recently, many demonic Dao seniors have come to our 9th layer of the abyssal underworld. I wonder why they are here. Who knows? How can we be qualified to participate in the matters of these major characters? The cultivators whispered to each other as they looked at Xiaoqin at the bow. Their words were filled with awe and worship. Xiaoqin felt very satisfied with this. Before he came, he had learned that the abyssal underworld worshipped the strong. If he deliberately kept a low profile, he would end up attracting trouble. The races of the abyssal underworld were all hot-tempered, cold-blooded, and bloodthirsty people. It would be much more convenient to keep a low profile. Not only would no one dare to seek trouble for him, but it would also be more convenient. Greetings, senior. As Xiaoqin looked at the river, a trembling voice came from behind him. He turned his head and saw a young Asura race cultivator calling out to him.